Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Nightmare Narratives. I can picture some of you already in bed, maybe some of you just getting home from work. Wherever you are, whatever time it is, I'm glad you're here. If this helps you relax or sleep, please like and subscribe. It means a lot. Now let's get you comfortable, and I'll tell you tonight's story. My name is Wade Callahan, and I've been a forest ranger for 19 years. I've seen a lot of strange things in these mountains, but nothing prepared me for what happened on Devil's Backbone Ridge in October of 1976. I grew up in these hills. My daddy grew up here. His daddy before him. We're Appalachian through and through. My grandmother used to be what folks called a granny woman, someone who knew healing herbs and old mountain ways. She told me stories about things that lived deep in the hollows, things that weren't quite right. I never believed her. Not until I heard them screaming. People call me the Bloodhound because I'm good at finding lost hikers. Real good. I've got this sense for the mountains, like they talk to me somehow. In 19 years, I've never lost anyone I went looking for. That's what I'm proud of. That's what keeps me going, even though these mountains took my brother 15 years ago. They said it was a hunting accident. I never quite believed that. I'm 45 now, getting gray in my beard, walking with a limp from an old fall. But I can still track better than anyone in the Jefferson National Forest. I carry my grandfather's knife everywhere, old bone handle, sharp as the day he made it. He told my daddy it was special, blessed somehow. I just thought it was a good knife. It was the third week of October when the call came in. A family of 4 hadn't returned from Devil's Backbone Trail. Mom, Dad, 2 kids ages 7 and 10. Last seen 3 days ago at the established campground. That was already bad. 3 days in these mountains, with winter coming on, temperature was dropping to 20 degrees at night. We'd had our first snow dusting on the peaks. I headed out at first light with my search kit. The campground was 25 miles from the nearest town, deep in the backcountry. Radio signals got spotty out there. My backup team was at least 2 hours behind me on those winding mountain roads. When I got to their campsite, my stomach dropped. Everything was still there. The tent stood perfect. Sleeping bags were laid out like the family had just vanished in the middle of the night. The camp stove still had food on it, oatmeal, stone cold now, but someone had been cooking that morning, 3 days ago. I've seen abandoned campsites before. People get scared, they run, they leave stuff behind. But this was different. This was like they'd been plucked right out of their sleeping bags. I radioed it in. Dispatch, this is Callahan. Got a situation here. Site's intact, but nobody home. Starting search pattern Alpha. Copy that, Wade. Weather's turning. You've got maybe 6 hours of good light. 6 hours. I'd need 6 days to search this area properly. I pulled out my compass and started the standard search grid, moving in careful circles out from the campsite. That's when I noticed how quiet it was. No birds, no insects, nothing. In all my years, I'd never heard the forest this silent. It felt wrong, like the whole mountain was holding its breath. The fog was rolling in thick from the valleys, cutting visibility down to maybe 20 yards. I marked my trail with orange tape every 50 feet, just like I'd done 1,000 times before. My breath came out in white clouds. The temperature felt colder here than it should be, maybe 10 degrees colder than down at the ranger station. I found the first track about 100 yards from camp, barefoot, human-shaped, but wrong. I've tracked a lot of things. Bear, deer, lost hikers, you name it. This print had 5 toes like a human foot, but there was something else, a 6th toe on the outside edge. And where there should have been toenails, there were marks like claws had dug into the soft earth. The stride length was all wrong too. 7 feet between prints. No human walks with a 7-foot stride, not even running. I took photos with my camera, measured everything, stayed professional. But my hands were shaking when I radioed it in. Dispatch, I've got unusual tracks. Might be. I don't know what they are. Say again, Wade? Just send the dogs. And tell my backup to hurry. The tracking dogs arrived 2 hours later with Ranger Tom Breslin and his trainee, a young kid named Danny who'd only been on the job 3 months. Good dogs, bloodhounds that could track a scent through water. I'd worked with them before. But when we brought them to where the track started, they wouldn't move. Both dogs planted their feet, hackles raised, whimpering. Tom tried to coax them forward, nothing doing. They'd track a bear, track a mountain lion without hesitation, but whatever made those prints, they wanted no part of it. Never seen them do this, Tom said. His face was pale. What the hell are we dealing with, Wade? Don't know yet. Let's spread out, keep searching. Family's been gone 3 days. They're running out of time. We split up into a wider search pattern. I took the eastern ridge, Tom went west, Danny stayed with the campsite as base. We checked in every 30 minutes by radio. My compass started acting funny around noon. The needle would spin, then point south, then spin again. I tapped it, checked it against my backup compass. Same thing. My GPS unit was showing coordinates that put me somewhere in the middle of Canada. That was impossible. I could see the trail markers I'd placed myself last summer. The fog got thicker. My flashlight seemed dimmer, even though I'd put fresh batteries in that morning. I was marking time by my watch, staying careful, staying professional, but something felt very, very wrong. I found the shoes at 2:47 p.m. exactly. I remember because I checked my watch to log it. They were hanging from tree branches, 40 feet up. 2 pairs of small sneakers, kids' shoes, a pair of adult hiking boots, 1 woman's tennis shoe, all arranged in a perfect circle around this old stone formation I'd never seen before. Even though I'd hiked this area 100 times, there was no way to climb those trees. No branches low enough to reach, bark too smooth to grip. But those shoes were up there, tied to branches by their laces, swaying in the wind. I radioed Tom. Found something. You're not going to believe this. Try me. When he saw it, he just stood there, mouth open. Danny radioed in asking what we'd found. Tom told him to stay at base camp. How did someone get up there? Tom asked. They didn't. They couldn't. It's not possible. Then how? That's when we heard it. A child's voice, calling from the woods to our left. Help, please help us. We both ran toward it. Tom was faster, younger. I followed as quick as my bad leg would let me. The voice kept calling, kept moving. We chased it for 10 minutes, maybe 15, crashing through underbrush, following that scared little kid's voice. Then we heard the same voice behind us. Then to our right. Then above us, somehow above us in the trees. Help, please. It was the same voice, the exact same voice, coming from 4 directions at once. The same words, the same tone, like someone was playing a recording on speakers hidden in the forest. Tom stopped running. We stood back to back, breathing hard, listening to that child's voice echo through the fog from everywhere and nowhere. That's not right, Tom whispered. No, I said. It's not. The voices stopped. The forest went silent again. No wind, no birds, nothing. My radio crackled. Tom? Wade? You guys okay? I lost you on GPS. Danny sounded worried. Tom grabbed his radio. We're here. Heading back to you now. Where are you? According to my tracker, you're 3 miles away, but you've only been gone 20 minutes. We looked at each other. Tom checked his GPS. It was spinning through random coordinates, numbers that made no sense. I pulled out my map and compass, tried to orient myself the old-fashioned way. The compass needle pointed straight up at the sky. Wade, Tom said quietly, I think we need to call this in. Get more people, maybe even the police. I nodded. We started walking back toward where we thought the campsite was. The fog was so thick now I could barely see Tom, and he was right next to me. That's when I found myself alone. 1 second, Tom was beside me. The next second, nothing, just fog. Tom? No answer. Tom! My voice didn't echo right. It sounded flat, dead, like the air was swallowing the sound. I don't know how long I walked. Could have been minutes. Could have been hours. My watch had stopped. When I finally stumbled out of the fog, I was standing in a clearing I'd never seen before. My arms were covered in scratches, long, deep cuts that were bleeding through my jacket. I had no memory of getting them. Tom's voice came through my radio. Wade, where the hell are you? You've been gone 3 hours. 3 hours? It felt like 5 minutes. I don't know. I'm in some clearing. There's a rock formation. Looks old. Maybe Cherokee. Get back to camp now. Danny's sick. Something's wrong with him. When I finally made it back, and I still don't know how I found the way Danny was lying on the ground, vomiting. His face was gray. Tom said he'd just started screaming about 20 minutes ago, said he felt like something was watching him, something that wanted to hurt him. We packed up. Whatever this was, it was beyond a normal search and rescue. We needed help, more people, maybe even someone who understood what the hell was happening. That's when we saw it. Just for a second, through a gap in the fog, something tall was standing at the edge of the clearing. Maybe 8 feet tall, thin like it was starving, standing perfectly still. It was wearing clothes, human clothes. I recognized the father's jacket. The thing was wearing the missing father's jacket. Tom, he saw it too. I know he did, because he grabbed my arm so hard it left bruises. Then the fog closed in again, and it was gone. We got Danny back to the ranger station by nightfall. He was in bad shape, fever, couldn't stop shaking, kept saying something was wrong in his head. They took him to the hospital in town. I never saw him again after that night. Tom and I sat in the station, drinking bad coffee, trying to make sense of what we'd seen. I called in for more help. By morning, we had 6 more rangers, a state police search team, and even a helicopter on standby if the weather cleared. We went back to Devil's Backbone at dawn. 8 of us this time, all experienced, all armed with flares and radios and proper gear. If that family was still alive, we were going to find them. The forest felt different in daylight. Still too quiet, still too cold, but less threatening somehow. We split into 4 teams of 2, each team taking a different direction from the campsite. I was paired with a ranger named Sarah Chen. She'd been doing this for 12 years, tough as nails, didn't scare easy. We took the North Ridge, following the creek bed up toward the higher peaks. We found the first body at 9:30 a.m. It was Marcus Webb, one of the rangers from the other team. We'd been talking to him on the radio 15 minutes before. Now he was 30 feet up in a tree, impaled on a broken branch. His body was positioned like he'd been climbing, reaching for something, but there was no way he could have gotten up there. The lowest branch was 20 feet off the ground. Sarah called it in while I stared up at Marcus. His eyes were open, looking at nothing. There was no expression on his face, like he died without even realizing what was happening. The other rangers converged on our position. We got Marcus down. I won't describe how we did that. Nobody should have to do that to a friend. The police wanted to call off the search, said it was too dangerous. But that family was still out there. And now, whatever killed Marcus was hunting us too. I was voted to make the call. Keep going or pack it up. We keep going, I said. But we stay in sight of each other. Nobody goes anywhere alone, not even to piss. We found the cave at noon. It was hidden behind a waterfall, up on the eastern face of the ridge. You couldn't see it unless you knew exactly where to look. I'd hiked past this spot 100 times and never noticed it. Sarah and I went in first, flashlights cutting through the darkness. The cave went back maybe 50 feet, then opened up into a bigger chamber. That's where we found the bones. Dozens of skeletons, maybe more. Some were old, just piles of brown bones. Some were newer. They were arranged in patterns on the floor, careful patterns like someone had placed them there on purpose. Personal items were scattered among them, wallets, jewelry, watches. I saw a driver's license from 1952, a class ring from 1968, a child's toy from maybe the 1942. This thing, whatever it was, had been taking people for decades. In the center of the chamber was a stone altar, carved with symbols I didn't recognize. Cherokee, maybe, or older. Something about it made my skin crawl. The air around it felt heavy, like it was pressing down on my chest. Sarah took photos while I searched the chamber. That's when I heard the voice. Wade, is that you? My brother's voice. Clear as day, coming from deeper in the cave. Wade, I'm hurt. I need help, please. I knew it wasn't real. I knew my brother had been dead for 15 years. But I still took a step toward that voice. Sarah grabbed my arm. Don't, that's not your brother. I know, I said. But I wanted to follow it anyway. Wanted it so bad it hurt. More voices started up. Sarah's mother, who died 10 years ago. Marcus, the ranger we'd just found dead. The missing father, calling for his kids. All the voices echoing through the cave, begging us to come deeper, come help, come find them. We ran. Got out of that cave fast as we could and didn't stop until we were back with the others. I told them what we'd found. The police wanted to go in with a full team, document everything, but I said no. I said we needed to find that family first, then we could worry about the bones. That's when the screaming started. Not human screaming, something else. High-pitched and awful, like metal scraping on metal mixed with an animal's death cry. It came from all around us, from the forest itself, echoing off the mountain so loud I thought my eardrums would burst. The other rangers dropped their gear, hands over their ears. The sound went on, maybe 30 seconds, maybe a full minute. When it finally stopped, my ears were ringing so bad I could barely hear. "What the fuck was that?" someone shouted. I didn't answer, because I'd just seen it again. Standing in the trees about 50 yards away, 8 feet tall, thin as a rail, covered in something that looked like bark. But its face kept changing. 1 second it looked human, the next second something else, something with too many teeth and eyes in the wrong places. It was watching us, and it was wearing more clothes now. I recognized Sarah's jacket, the one she'd left at the campsite. It had taken her jacket while we were in the cave. "We need to leave," Sarah said. "Right now." But it was too late. The thing moved, faster than anything that size should move. It was on us before we could react. I don't remember all of what happened next. My mind sort of blanked it out, I think. I remember screaming. I remember someone firing a flare gun. I remember Sarah pushing me out of the way of something, and then she wasn't there anymore. When I could think clearly again, we were running down the mountain, 5 of us left out of 8. We didn't stop until we hit the ranger station. The police sealed off the ranger station, entire area. No one goes to Devil's Backbone now. They said it was because of environmental hazards and unstable terrain. But I knew the truth. That thing was still up there. And it had the family. And now it had Sarah too. I went back alone that night. I know I shouldn't have. I know it was stupid. But I couldn't leave them up there. Couldn't leave that family, couldn't leave Sarah, couldn't let that thing keep killing. I took my grandfather's knife, a flashlight, and a radio I knew wouldn't work. I wasn't coming back unless I finished this. The mountain was different at night. The fog glowed in my flashlight beam, and somewhere in the distance, I could hear that screaming again. Quieter now, like it was calling me. I went straight to the cave. The waterfall was frozen now, ice coating the rocks. I climbed up and went inside. The bones were still there, but something else was there too. In the corner of the chamber, huddled together, I found them. The mother, the father, the 2 kids, alive but not really alive. Their eyes were open but empty, like nobody was home. They were breathing but shallow, like they were barely holding on. "Hey," I said, shaking the father's shoulder. "Hey, we need to go, now." He didn't respond. None of them did. They just stared at nothing. That's when it spoke. Not in stolen voices this time. Its own voice, old and deep and wrong. "They are mine now, as your brother was mine, as you will be mine." It stepped out of the shadows at the back of the cave. Up close, it was even worse than I'd thought. Its skin wasn't skin, it was bark and moss, and something that moved like it was alive. Its face shifted constantly, showing me everyone it had ever taken. My brother's face, Sarah's face, dozens of others I didn't know. "I guard this place," it said. "I guard the sacred bones of my people. This is my punishment and my purpose. You should not have come here." "What are you?" I asked. "I was a shaman once. I broke the old laws. I used power I should not have touched. The spirits cursed me to guard this place forever, to take any who disturbed the peace of the dead. That was 200 years ago. I do not wish to continue, but I must." It moved closer. I could see that it wore pieces of everyone it had taken, scraps of their clothes, their jewelry, their hair. A walking monument to decades of death. "Let them go," I said. "They didn't disturb anything. They're just a family camping. They walked on sacred ground. You all did. And now you will stay." It reached for me. I pulled out my grandfather's knife. The thing laughed, a horrible sound like rocks grinding together. "You think a blade can hurt me? I am beyond such things." But when I cut it, it screamed. Black smoke poured from the wound, and the creature stumbled back. I didn't understand it then, but my grandmother's old stories came flooding back. "Bone knife," she'd said, "blessed by righteous blood. Made for fighting things that shouldn't exist." "Impossible," the creature hissed. "That blade should not be here. Should not exist." I cut it again. And again. Each time, it screamed and bled that black smoke. The cave started to shake. Rocks fell from the ceiling. The bones on the floor began to rattle. The thing split into 3 versions of itself, each one wearing a different person's face. They circled me, and I realized I couldn't fight all of them. I was going to die in this cave. Then I remembered the words. My grandmother used to say them when I was sick, when I was scared. Cherokee words I never understood. I said them now, loud as I could, while I slashed with the knife. The creatures screamed. The cave shook harder. I grabbed the father, shook him hard. Wake up, we have to go. His eyes focused. He looked at me, really looked at me for the first time. Run, I said. Take your family and run. He grabbed his wife, shook her awake. She grabbed the older kid. They were moving now, stumbling toward the exit. But the younger one, the 7-year-old boy, he wasn't waking up. His eyes stayed empty, and when he opened his mouth, the creature's voice came out. I will live again, it said through the child. This body will be mine. The parents were screaming now, fully awake, realizing what was happening. The mother grabbed for her son, but he pushed her away with strength no 7-year-old should have. I looked into that kid's empty eyes and knew the truth. The creature had already taken him, had already replaced whatever made him human with something else. I had to make a choice right then. Save everyone by killing a child, or let that thing be reborn in his body. I'm sorry, I whispered. I don't like to think about what I did next. The boy begged in his own voice, crying for his mommy. But I could see the thing behind his eyes, wearing him like a costume. I used the knife. It was quick. The creature's death scream shook the whole mountain. Windows shattered in the valley below, they told me later. Its body dissolved into black smoke that burned everything it touched, including me. I've still got the scars. The cave started to collapse. I grabbed the family, what was left of them, and we ran. The whole chamber came down behind us, sealing the creature and all those bones inside forever. I brought them down the mountain in the dark. The mother, the father, the 10-year-old daughter, they didn't speak, didn't cry, just walked like ghosts, holding on to each other. We found Sarah at the ranger station, alive but different. She'd escaped somehow, didn't remember how. She had scratches on her arms just like mine, and a look in her eyes that said she'd seen things she'd never talk about. The official report said there was a cave-in, said exposure and trauma killed the boy, said Marcus and the others died in an accident. The Park Service sealed off Devil's Backbone, restricted access to the whole ridge. Nobody asks questions when rangers die. They just move on. I got a commendation, got promoted to senior ranger. Nobody knows what really happened except me, Sarah, and that family. And none of us talk about it. The family moved away. Heard they went to Florida, somewhere flat and bright with no mountains. The daughter developed a fear of leaving the house. The parents got divorced within a year. Some things break you in ways that don't heal. But something changed in me too. I started having dreams that showed me things before they happened. I'd dream about a hiker getting lost, then find them the next day right where the dream showed me. I'd dream about forest fires 3 days before they started. It's like I'm connected to these mountains now in a way I wasn't before. I found my grandmother's journal in my father's things after he died. Turned out our family had been doing this for generations. Watchers, she called us. People chosen to guard against things that shouldn't exist, things that slip through the cracks in the world. I set up a quiet network with other rangers, people who've seen things they can't explain. We share information, watch for signs. There have been 4 incidents in the past year that I've stopped before they got bad. 4 families that went home safe, never knowing what was hunting them. I keep my grandfather's knife sharp. I've learned the old words properly now, learned what they mean. I leave signs for other rangers, coded warnings in the trail markers. Some of them understand, some of them don't. That's okay. Sarah still works with me sometimes. She doesn't like to, but she knows what I know now, that there are things in these mountains that have been here longer than us. Things that don't follow our rules. Most of them just want to be left alone. But some of them, like that creature, got twisted somehow. Got stuck between what they were and what they became. I'm sitting in my ranger station now, writing this down because someone should know. Because this wasn't the only one. My grandmother's journal has dozens of stories, going back 200 years. Different creatures, different mountains, but always the same pattern. Sacred places, that got corrupted. Guardians that went wrong. People who stumbled into things they weren't meant to see. Last week, I started having new dreams. There's something waking up in the Blue Ridge, about 200 miles from here. Something old, something angry. I can feel it the same way I felt that creature on Devil's Backbone. I'll be heading out tomorrow to see what it is. To see if I can stop it before it starts taking people. Because that's what I do now. That's what I am. A watcher. A guardian against the things that hunt in the dark places. The things that wear human voices and human faces but are something else underneath. My name is Wade Callahan. I'm a forest ranger in the Appalachian Mountains. And I'm telling you this because you need to know when you go hiking in the deep woods, when you camp in the remote places, when you hear something calling your name in the darkness. Don't answer. Don't follow. And for God's sake, don't go looking for what made the sound. Some things in these mountains are better left alone. But I can't leave them alone. Not anymore. Because someone has to stand between them and the innocent people who don't know they're there. Even if it costs me everything. Even if, one day, I end up like that creature twisted by the things I fight, caught between worlds, unable to stop. Someone has to watch. Someone has to stand guard. That someone is me. My name is Luther Blackstone, and I've been a park ranger for 16 years. Before that, I grew up in a coal mining town where everyone's daddy worked underground. Mine did too, until the day he didn't come home. I was 12 when the Champion Coal Company mine exploded. November 14th, 1962. They said it was an accident, a buildup of methane gas, faulty equipment, just one of those tragedies that happen in mining country. 48 men went into the ground that morning. None of them came back out. My father was one of them. The company sealed the mine 3 days later. Said it was too dangerous to recover the bodies, too unstable to keep digging. They poured concrete over every entrance and paid the families enough to stop asking questions. My mother got a check for $5,000 and a letter thanking my father for his service. We never even got to bury him. That's why I became a ranger. Not to save trees or protect wildlife, though I do that too. I became a ranger to make sure abandoned mines stay sealed, to keep other kids from losing their fathers to corporate greed and underground darkness. Now I'm 41 years old, stocky like my father was, with coal-black hair going gray at the temples. I'm missing 2 fingers on my left hand from a childhood accident with mining equipment, a reminder of the life I escaped. And I'm standing at the edge of Blackwater Canyon in the Monongahela National Forest, staring at 12 sealed mine entrances that haven't been opened in 21 years. Something's wrong here. The call came in 3 days ago. Hikers reported seeing lights moving inside the abandoned mines. Sounds too hammering, they said, like someone working underground. Local rangers checked it out, found nothing, figured it was kids playing pranks or maybe just echoes from the wind. But the reports kept coming, and they kept getting stranger. So, they sent me. The expert. The guy who knows mines. The guy whose father died. In one. It's November again. Unseasonably warm for West Virginia. 70 degrees when it should be 40. The kind of weather that feels wrong in your bones. The air pressure's been weird too. My ears keep popping, like something underground is breathing. I park my truck at the canyon's edge and grab my equipment. Flashlight, gas detector, radio, climbing rope. The basics. I've done this inspection 100 times at 100 different sites. It should be routine. But as I walk toward the first mine entrance, I notice something that makes my stomach tighten. The ground around the mines is dead. Not autumn dead, actually dead. The trees within 50 yards of each entrance are skeletal, their bark peeling off in strips. The grass is brown and brittle, crunching under my boots like broken glass. Even the moss on the rocks looks dried out, gray instead of green. I've seen environmental damage before. Acid mine drainage, toxic runoff, soil contamination. But that takes years to show up, and the Champion mines have been sealed since 1962. Whatever's killing the vegetation is happening now. I check my gas detector. Methane levels are elevated, but not dangerous. The air smells wrong, though not like methane, which is odorless, but like something else. Something chemical and sharp that burns the back of my throat. The first mine entrance is exactly where it should be, the concrete seal still in place. But as I get closer, I see the cracks. They're everywhere. Spiderweb patterns radiating out from the center of the seal, some of them wide enough to slip my fingers into. Fresh concrete dust coats the ground at the base, white powder that hasn't been there long enough to wash away in the rain. I run my flashlight along the cracks. They're not random. They form a pattern, starting at the center and spreading outward, like something hit the seal from behind. From inside the mine, from inside the sealed mine. My radio crackles. Blackstone, this is base. You at the site? I thumb the transmit button. Yeah, first entrance. The seal's compromised. Compromised how? Looks like impact damage. From the inside. Silence on the other end. Then, that's not possible, Luther. I know what I'm seeing. Could be settling. Ground shifts, concrete cracks. Happens all the time. I don't answer. I'm staring at something else now, something that makes my mouth go dry. There's coal dust on the outside of the seal. Black powder, fresh enough that it hasn't blown away, coating the concrete in a thin layer. And in that dust, pressed clear as day, are handprints. Dozens of them. Small handprints, like someone was pushing against the concrete from the inside, trying to get out. I spend the next 2 hours checking the other 11 entrances. Every single seal shows the same damaged cracks, radiating outward. Coal dust on the outside. Handprints in the powder. Some of the cracks are big enough to see into the darkness beyond, and when I shine my flashlight through them, all I see is empty tunnels stretching down into blackness. But I hear something. It's faint. So faint I think I'm imagining it at first. A rhythmic sound, metal on stone, coming from deep underground. Tap, tap, tap. Pause. Tap, tap, tap. The sound of a pickaxe hitting rock. The sound every mining town kid grows up hearing through bedroom walls when their fathers can't sleep and practice their swing in the backyard. The sound of mining. I press my ear against the concrete at the third entrance. The tapping is clearer here, more insistent. And there's something else too, voices. Men's voices, distant and echoing, calling to each other in words I can't quite make out. My gas detector starts beeping. I pull back and check the readout. The methane levels have spiked, climbing from acceptable to dangerous in the span of 30 seconds. But it's not just methane. The detector is showing compounds I don't recognize, chemical signatures that shouldn't exist in nature. The air around the mine entrance turns cold. Cold. The temperature drops 20 degrees in an instant, my breath misting in front of my face. Frost forms on the concrete seal, spreading outward from the cracks like ice crystals growing in fast forward. The dead grass at my feet becomes brittle with ice, snapping when I shift my weight, and the tapping stops. Just like that. Complete silence. Even the wind dies, leaving the canyon so quiet I can hear my own heartbeat pounding in my ears. Then I see the light. It starts as a flicker deep in the mine, visible through the cracks in the seal. A warm, orange glow, like a flame moving closer. The kind of light that comes from a miner's carbide lamp, the old-fashioned kind my father used to wear on his helmet. The kind nobody's used since 1962. I should leave. Every instinct I have is screaming at me to get back in my truck and drive away. But I'm frozen, watching that light grow brighter, watching it move up the tunnel toward the sealed entrance. Toward me. The light reaches the concrete barrier. I see it clearly now through the cracks, definitely a carbide lamp, burning with that distinctive orange-yellow flame. And below the light, I see the shadow of whoever's carrying it. The shadow of a man in a mining helmet. Hello? My voice comes out as a croak. Is someone in there? The light stops moving. The shadow goes still. Then a voice answers me. Need to get out. The words are muffled by the concrete but clear enough. A man's voice, rough and tired. Been digging for days. Need to get out. My hands are shaking. Sir, that mine's been sealed for 21 years. There's nobody. Explosion trapped us. Can't find the way out. Been digging and digging, but the tunnel keeps going. Please. My boy's waiting for me. The temperature drops even further. My gas detector is screaming now. The readings jumping all over the place. And that's when I notice something that makes my blood turn to ice water. The voice I'm hearing, I know it. Not just from 21 years ago. Not just from childhood memories. I know it because I've heard it in my dreams every night since 1962. In the voice that used to read me bedtime stories and teach me how to tie my shoes. It's my father's voice. I stumble backward, my boots slipping on the ice-covered ground. No, no, you're not, you can't be. Luther? The voice says my name. My father's voice says my name. Luther, is that you, son? I can't see good through the cracks. Shine your light over here. I do it without thinking, raising my flashlight to point at the sealed entrance. The beam catches the cracks, illuminates the darkness beyond. And I see him. My father, standing in the tunnel on the other side of the concrete, his face pressed up against a crack, squinting against my light. He looks exactly the way I remember him, 36 years old. Coal dust on his cheeks, that slight smile he always wore even when he was tired. He looks exactly the same because he hasn't aged a day since the explosion killed him in 1962. There you are, he says, and his smile widens. Been looking for you, boy. Thought you'd be waiting outside when we got out. Why's this door still closed? Help your old man out here and open it up. I can't speak, can't move, can't do anything but stare at the impossible sight of my dead father standing in a sealed mine, talking to me like no time has passed at all. Behind him, more lights appear. More carbide lamps, burning orange in the darkness. More shadows, more men, crowding the tunnel behind my father. More miners who died 21 years ago. Come on now, my father says, his voice taking on an edge of impatience. We got work to finish. Can't finish it trapped in here. Open the door, Luther. Be a good boy and open the door. His hand reaches through one of the cracks. His actual hand, solid and real, fingers stretching toward me through the gap in the concrete. The skin is pale, almost translucent, but I can see his wedding ring, the same gold band he wore on the day he died. I run. I don't stop running until I reach my truck, and even then, my hands are shaking so hard I drop my keys twice before I can get the door open. My radio is buzzing with static, my gas detector still screaming, and my father's voice is echoing in my head. Asterisk. Open the door, Luther. Asterisk, I call base. The supervisor, Carl Henderson, picks up on the second ring. Luther, what's wrong? You sound, there are people in the mines. I interrupt. Living people. Or not living, I don't know. Carl, I saw my father. I saw my father in the mine. Silence. Then, Luther, your father died in 62. I know that, but he's in there. He's in the Champion mine, and he's talking, and he wants out, and I stop. I sound crazy. I sound like I've lost my mind. Luther, listen to me. You need to come back. We'll send a team to... No. I force myself to breathe slowly. No, I need to check the other sites. If one mine is compromised, they all might be. I hang up before he can argue. The next entrance is half a mile down the canyon. I drive there instead of walking, keeping my eyes on the road and not on the dead trees pressing in from both sides. The sun is setting now, casting long shadows across the ground. And I tell myself that's why the forest looks so dark. But it's not just the shadows. The dead zone is spreading. Trees that were green this morning are now gray and withered. The creek that runs through the canyon has stopped flowing, the water stagnant and covered with an oily film. Even the rocks look wrong, their surfaces pitted and corroded like something's been eating away at them. Whatever's coming out of those mines is killing everything it touches. The fourth entrance is completely destroyed. Not cracked, destroyed. The concrete seal has been smashed open from the inside, chunks of it scattered across the ground. The opening is big enough for a man to walk through, and beyond it, I can see the tunnel extending down into darkness. Fresh pickaxe marks cover the walls of the tunnel. Deep gouges in the rock, white stone exposed where the tool has cut away the coal. But that's impossible. This mine has been sealed for 21 years. Nobody's been digging in there. Nobody living, anyway. I hear voices again. Not just one, this time dozens of them, echoing up from underground. Men talking and laughing, the sounds of a mining crew starting their shift. I hear someone calling out measurements, someone else cursing about a stuck support beam, another voice singing an old folk song I recognize from my childhood. The sounds of men at work, the sounds of dead men at work. I shine my flashlight into the tunnel. The beam catches something moving in the darkness, something that glitters and shifts. Coal dust, floating in the air like a cloud, fresh enough that it hasn't settled yet. And shadows. Human-shaped shadows, moving in the dust, carrying equipment, swinging pickaxes. Working. One of the shadows turns toward me. I see the outline of a mining helmet, the glow of a carbide lamp. Then the shadow starts walking up the tunnel, moving toward the entrance. Moving toward me. I back away, but I'm not fast enough. The figure emerges from the tunnel, stepping into the fading sunlight, and I get my first clear look at one of the miners. He's translucent, not invisible, but not solid either, somewhere in between, like looking at someone through frosted glass. I can see his features, the coal dust on his face, the rips in his work clothes. I can see his eyes too, tired and confused, like he's just waking up from a long sleep. And I can see through him, through his chest, through his body. I can see the tunnel wall, behind him. "Evening," he says, nodding at me. His voice sounds normal, solid, even though his body isn't. "You with the company? Here to check on our progress?" I can't answer. I'm frozen again, staring at this impossible thing standing 10 feet away from me. "We're working hard," the ghost continues. "Should have this vein cleared out by end of shift. Tell the boss we're doing good work down here. Good, honest work." "You're dead," I whisper. He frowns. "What's that?" "You're dead. You died in 1962. The explosion." "Explosion?" He looks confused. "What explosion? We just started shift a few hours ago. Ain't been no explosion." Behind him, more figures emerge from the tunnel. More translucent miners, more ghosts, all of them carrying equipment and talking among themselves like it's just another day at work. None of them seem to notice they're see-through. None of them seem to realize they're dead. One of them walks right through a tree. Doesn't go around it, walks directly through the trunk like it's not even there. He doesn't react, doesn't slow down, just keeps walking and talking to the man beside him. They're not just ghosts. They're ghosts who don't know they're ghosts. "Listen," I say, backing away slowly. "You need to go back in the mine. It's not safe out here." "Not safe?" The first ghost laughs. "Buddy, we're coal miners. Nothing's safe. But the work needs doing, so we do it." More ghosts are emerging now, streaming out of the tunnel in groups of 2 and 3. 20 of them, 30, 40. More than I can count, all translucent, all carrying equipment, all acting like they're alive. And the temperature keeps dropping. It's below freezing now, cold enough that my breath comes out in thick white clouds. Frost covers everything, the ground, the rocks, my truck. Ice crystals form in the air, catching the last rays of sunlight and sparkling like diamonds. One of the ghosts walks past me. As he does, I feel something, a deep, bone-penetrating cold that goes beyond temperature. My lungs seize up, my chest burns. For a moment, I can't breathe, can't move, can't do anything but feel that freezing emptiness washing over me. Then he's passed, and I can breathe again, gasping and coughing. Black phlegm comes up when I cough. Coal dust, coating the inside of my mouth, even though I haven't been underground. Even though I haven't breathed any dust. The ghost looks back at me. "You all right there, buddy? You look sick." I run back to my truck, jump inside, and lock the doors. Through the windshield, I watch the miners spread out across the canyon, walking in groups, talking and laughing, disappearing into the trees. They're not just at this entrance anymore. They're everywhere. And they're making the canyon itself sick. My radio crackles to life. "All units, this is base. We have a situation. Hikers are reporting strange activity near the Champion mines. A family is trapped," I repeat. "A family is trapped near entrance 7. They're calling for help, but we can't get a clear location." I grab the radio. "This is Blackstone. What kind of activity?" "They say people are surrounding them. People covered in coal dust." "The hikers sound terrified, Luther. They're saying these people won't let them leave." I know what that means. The ghosts have found victims. Entrance 7 is at the far end of the canyon, past the worst of the dead zone. I drive there as fast as I dare, the truck bouncing over roots and rocks, my headlights cutting through the gathering darkness. The sun has set completely now, and the only light comes from my truck and the dozens of carbide lamps flickering in the trees around me. The ghosts are everywhere, walking the old mining roads, standing in groups by the creek, sitting on fallen logs like they're taking their lunch break. Some of them wave as I pass. Others don't even look up. They're all just going about their business, doing their jobs, completely unaware that they're dead. I reach entrance 7 and find the family huddled against the sealed mine entrance. A father, mother, and 2 kids. maybe 8 and 10 years old. They're surrounded by a circle of ghosts, maybe 15 of them, all just standing there and staring. I jump out of the truck. Get away from them. The ghosts turn to look at me. One of them, a tall man with a thick mustache, shakes his head. Can't do that, friend. These folks are trespassing. This is Champion Coal property. We got orders to keep people out. This mine has been closed for 21 years, I say, walking slowly toward the family. You have no authority here. 21 years? The ghost looks confused. What are you talking about? We just started our shift this morning. No. I forced myself to stay calm. You didn't. You died. All of you died on November 14th, 1962. There was an explosion. Methane gas. The mine collapsed. You're dead. The ghosts go silent. They look at each other, and for the first time, I see something other than confusion in their translucent faces. I see fear. That's not true, the mustached ghost says, but his voice wavers. We're not, we can't be. Look at yourselves, I say. You're see-through. You walk through solid objects. You don't feel the cold. You're ghosts. One of the ghosts looks down at his hand, holds it up to the moonlight. I see his face change as he realizes he can see through his own flesh. No, he whispers. No, no, no. The other ghosts are looking at their hands too, touching their faces, their bodies, realizing the truth. Some of them start to fade, becoming more transparent. Others become more solid, their translucent forms solidifying into something darker, something angry. The mustache ghost's face twists with rage. You did this. The company did this. They killed us. They sealed us in and left us to die. I know, I say. My father was one of you. Luther Blackstone. Do you remember him? The ghost stares at me. Blackstone? Little Blackstone's kid? Yes. Your daddy's down in the main shaft with the others. They're still digging. They think if they dig far enough, they'll find a way out. His voice turns bitter. But there is no way out. There never was. The explosion sealed us in, and the company made sure we'd stay buried. What do you mean? The explosion wasn't an accident. The ghost moves closer, and I resist the urge to back away. The executives knew we'd found evidence of illegal dumping, toxic waste, chemicals they were burying in the old shafts. We were going to report it, going to shut them down. So they shut us down first. My stomach turns. They murdered you. 48 of us. And they got away with it. Paid off the inspectors, covered up the evidence, went on making money while we rotted in the dark. The family behind me is crying. The kids are clinging to their mother, and the father is trying to shield them all with his body. But the ghosts aren't paying attention to them anymore. They're focused on me. Your daddy's been trying to get justice for 21 years, the ghost says. We all have. We've been finding the executives, one by one, making them pay. Making them work until their hearts give out, just like we did. Making them breathe coal dust until their lungs turn black. Making them understand what they did to us. You're killing people. They killed us first. They killed you. Not these hikers. Not innocent people. The ghost's expression softens slightly. He looks at the family, then back at me. We didn't mean to scare them. We forgot. Forgot we were dead. Forgot that people can see us now. It's been so long in the dark, and now that we're out. He trails off. Behind him, more ghosts are emerging from the trees. Dozens of them. Hundreds. Every miner who died in the Champion mine explosion. All manifesting at once. All drawn by the confrontation. And leading them is my father. He looks different now. More solid. More real. His translucent form has darkened, taken on weight and substance. He walks through the crowd of ghosts, and they part for him, giving him space. Luther, he says, and his voice is my father's voice, but also something else, something colder, something that's had 21 years to ferment in the dark. Been looking for you, son. Dad, I whisper. He smiles, but it's not the smile I remember. You've grown up. Last time I saw you, you were just a boy. Now look at you, a ranger. Protecting the forest. Protecting these mines. His smile fades. Protecting the company that killed me. I'm not protecting them. I'm trying to keep people safe. Safe? He laughs, a harsh sound. Nobody's safe while those executives are still breathing. While they're still living their comfortable lives, while their company keeps running, while they get to grow old and die in their beds. That's not justice, son. That's not right. It's not right to hurt innocent people either. We're not hurting anyone, we're just doing what they did to us, making them work, making them dig, making them feel what it's like to be trapped underground with no way out. Behind him, I see movement in the trees. More hikers, I realize. At least a dozen of them, all wandering between the ghosts, all with that same glazed expression. Some of them are carrying pickaxes. Others are on their hands and knees, digging at the dirt with their bare fingers. They're all coughing up black phlegm. You're killing them, I say, just like the company killed you. My father's expression hardens. They'll survive. Probably. But they'll remember. They'll tell people what happened here. They'll make sure the truth comes out. The truth already came out. I'm shouting now. The company records were unsealed 5 years ago. Everyone knows what Champion Cole did. The executives were charged. They lost everything. They're still alive. My father's voice is ice. We're not. The temperature drops even further. The ground beneath my feet is covered in frost now, ice spreading out from where my father stands. The family behind me is shivering, and I can see their breath coming in rapid white clouds. Dad, please, let these people go. Let the hikers go. This isn't you. This is exactly me. He takes a step closer. This is what I became when I died in the dark, when I spent 21 years digging and never finding a way out. This is what they made me. Then let me help you find a way out now. He stops. The other ghosts go silent. What? I think fast, remembering everything I know about mining, about underground collapses, about how my father used to talk about his work. You said you've been digging, trying to escape. But you're digging in the wrong direction. The explosion sealed the main entrance, but there were ventilation shafts, access tunnels, other ways out. We looked. You looked as ghosts. But you're not thinking like miners anymore. You're thinking like dead men who are lost. I point at the sealed entrance behind the family. This is entrance 7. The ventilation shaft for this section is a quarter-mile north. If you can dig there, if you can break through, we'd be free? One of the other ghosts speaks up, hope in his voice. You'd find the surface. You'd reach the open air. You'd finally finish the job you started 21 years ago, getting out of the mine. My father stares at me. I can see him thinking, see him remembering what it was like to be a living man with a job to do and a son to get home to. The north shaft, he says slowly. That's where we were working when the explosion hit. That's where A stops. His translucent form flickers. That's where we died. Yes, you want us to go back there. I want you to finish what you started. Not revenge. Not killing. Just the work. The honest work you always took pride in. I take a step toward him. You taught me that work matters. That doing a job right matters. Let me help you do this job right. The silence stretches out. Around us, the other ghosts are waiting, watching. The trapped hikers are still digging, still coughing, but slower now, like the ghost's grip on them is weakening. Then my father nods. All right, son. Show us the way. It takes 3 hours. 3 hours of leading a procession of ghosts through the dead forest to the old ventilation shaft. 3 hours of explaining to them how to dig, where to dig, how to shore up the tunnel so it won't collapse. 3 hours of watching translucent men do impossible work with phantom tools. But they do it. They dig through 21 years of debris and cave-ins. They clear the shaft, break through to the surface, and finally reach the open air. As they do, something changes. The ghosts start to fade. Not disappearing, but becoming lighter, more transparent, like a weight is lifting off them. The anger drains from their faces, replaced by something like peace, like relief. My father is the last one to climb out of the shaft. He stands at the opening, looking up at the stars, and I see tears on his translucent cheeks. 21 years, he whispers. 21 years in the dark. You're out now, I say. He looks at me. Really looks at me, seeing me as I am now, not the 12-year-old boy he left behind, but the 41-year-old man I've become. You did good, son. You became a good man. I'm proud of you. I'm crying now, too. I'm sorry I couldn't save you. You did save me. Just took a while. He smiles, and this time it's the smile I remember from childhood. You saved all of us. The other ghosts are gathering around the shaft opening, looking at the forest, the sky, the world they've been separated from for so long. As I watch, they start to fade more quickly, their forms becoming thinner and thinner. "What's happening?" I ask. "We're leaving," my father says. "The work is done. We got out of the mine. That's all we needed to finish the job, to reach the surface, to not be trapped anymore." He reaches out, and even though his hand is barely visible now, I feel it touch my shoulder. "Thank you, Luther, for giving us that. Will I see you again? I don't think so. But that's okay. You don't need to see me anymore. You need to live your life, not spend it looking for ghosts." He's almost invisible now. Just a shimmer in the air, a suggestion of a man. "I love you, Dad. I love you too, son. Always did, always will." Then he's gone. They're all gone. The ghosts fade away completely, leaving me alone in the forest with a clear night sky overhead and the sound of wind in the trees. The cold vanishes immediately. The temperature rises back to normal November levels. And as I watch, the dead zone starts to heal. It's not instant, but it's visible. The frost on the trees melts. The brown grass shows hints of green. The creek starts flowing again, the water clear and clean. Whatever supernatural poison the ghosts brought with them is gone, and nature is reclaiming the canyon. I find the trapped hikers wandering near entrance 7, confused but alive. The black phlegm has cleared from their lungs. They don't remember much, just strange dreams about digging, about being underground, about voices calling to them in the dark. I tell them it was methane exposure, hallucinations from gas leaking out of the old mines. They believe me because it's easier than believing the truth. Over the next few weeks, I write my official report. Recommend resealing all the Champion mine entrances with modern materials. Note the unusual methane venting and atmospheric pressure. Explain the environmental dead zones as old contamination finally reaching the surface. I don't mention the ghosts. Nobody would believe me anyway, but I keep my father's carbide lamp. I found it lying on the ground near the ventilation shaft, solid and real, even though the man who carried it was neither. I have it mounted in my office now, a reminder of the men who died underground and the debt we owe to workers who do dangerous jobs for companies that don't care if they live or die. The Champion coal executives were prosecuted in 1980 after the sealed records were released. Most of them are dead now. The ones still alive are in prison or nursing homes, their fortunes gone, their reputations destroyed. Justice came eventually, just not the way my father and his fellow miners wanted it. But it came. That has to be enough. I'm still a ranger, still inspecting abandoned mines, still making sure they stay sealed. But now I have another job too. I help families find closure when their loved ones died in industrial accidents. I use what I learned that November night to guide them, to help them understand what happened, to let them know their dead aren't trapped anymore. Sometimes I hear reports from other rangers, ghosts at an abandoned factory in Pennsylvania, strange lights in a collapsed tunnel in Kentucky, voices calling from a sealed warehouse in Ohio, places where workers died and companies covered it up. I visit those places when I can. I do for those ghosts what I did for my father, help them finish their work, help them find peace, help them leave. It's not the job I signed up for, but it's the job I've been given. And sometimes, on quiet nights when I'm alone in the forest, I swear I can hear my father's voice carried on the wind. Not calling for help, not trapped and angry, but just talking the way he used to when I was a kid. Telling me stories. Telling me he's proud. Telling me to keep doing the work, because the work matters, and I will. For him, for all of them. For as long as there are mines to inspect and ghosts to guide home, I'll be there. My name is Luther Blackstone, and I'm a park ranger who talks to the dead. It's not the life I expected, but it's the life I've been given, and I'll do it right. Just like my father taught me. My name is Ezra Thornhill, and I've been a park ranger at Great Smoky Mountains National Park for 14 years. Most of that time, I've worked in Cades Cove, this beautiful valley, where the National Park Service preserved an entire 19th century settlement. Old cabins, churches, barns. It's like stepping back in time. I love this job. Always have. Maybe it's in my blood. My family's been in these mountains since the 1840 seconds. My great-great-grandfather Mordecai was one of the original settlers here. There's even a cabin with our family name on it, the Thornhill Cabin, built in 1842. I spend my days maintaining these historic buildings and talking to tourists about what life was like back then. The hard winters, the tight-knit community, the old stories and legends. I know every inch of this valley, every tree, every trail. After all these years, I thought I knew everything there was to know about Cades Cove. I was wrong. It started in early September, when the nights got cold earlier than usual. I mean, times cold, frost on the ground some mornings, which shouldn't happen until October. The animals acted strange too. Deer wouldn't go near certain areas. Birds fell silent when you walked past the old Thornhill cabin. I noticed it, but I didn't think much of it. Not at first. Then the Hendersons died. They were a family from Ohio, mom, dad, 2 kids, nice people. I'd talked to them that afternoon about the history of the settlement. The kids asked good questions, wanted to know if there were any ghost stories. I laughed and told them a few harmless tales about settlers seeing strange lights in the woods. They were staying in one of the rental cabins near the old Thornhill place. The next morning, all 4 of them were dead. No signs of violence, no carbon monoxide. The doors were locked from the inside. The medical examiner said their hearts just stopped. All 4 of them, at the exact same time. The looks on their faces, though was there when the bodies were found. I've never seen terror like that frozen on someone's face. 2 weeks later, it happened again. The Martinez family from Florida, father, mother, and their 6-year-old daughter. Same thing, found dead in a locked cabin near the Thornhill place. Same expressions of absolute horror. Then the Johnsons, then the Weavers. 4 families in 6 weeks. 12 people dead, all of them in cabins within 100 yards of my ancestors' old homestead. The park shut down that section of Cades Cove. CDC came in, checked for diseases. FBI looked for a serial killer. Environmental teams tested for gas leaks, toxins, everything. They found nothing. No explanation. But I knew something they didn't. Something I'd been ignoring because believing it meant accepting that everything I thought I knew about the world was wrong. I'm a rational man. I believe in science, in evidence. I never put much stock in the old mountain legends my grandmother used to tell. Stories about curses and witches and the dead coming back. But I couldn't ignore the pattern anymore. Every victim was a family with children. Every death happened at midnight. And every single one happened near my family's cabin. I started digging through old records at the County Historical Society. Land deeds, court documents, cemetery records. That's when I found it buried in a box of papers from 1847, the trial documents for Mary Whitlock. She was hanged as a witch in November of 1847. The charges said she murdered children through dark magic. 13 families testified against her. But the key witness, the one whose testimony sealed her fate, was my great-great-grandfather Mordecai Thornhill. According to the documents, Mary Whitlock screamed a curse as the noose went around her neck. She swore that the Thornhill bloodline would pay for what Mordecai had done. Every generation would suffer. The curse would never end. I sat in that dusty archive room, reading those words by lamplight, and my hands started shaking. I didn't believe in curses. I didn't believe in witches. But 12 people were dead, and they all died near my ancestors' cabin. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about those families, about the terror on their faces, about my own 8-year-old daughter, Emma, who was supposed to visit me next week for her fall break. Around 3 a.m., I gave up on sleep and drove back to Cades Cove. The valley was empty, closed to visitors. My truck headlights cut through the fog as I pulled up to the old Thornhill cabin. I sat there in the dark, engine off, just staring at the place my ancestor built almost 200 years ago. That's when the temperature dropped. I mean it, times dropped asterisk. 1 second, it was a cool autumn night. The next, my breath came out in thick clouds. Frost spread across my windshield from the inside. The thermometer on my dash fell from 55 degrees to 23 in less than a minute. Through the frosted glass, I saw something move near the cabin. A woman in a long dress, the kind they wore in the 1,840 seconds. She stood perfectly still in the moonlight, facing the cabin door. My hand found the door handle. Every instinct screamed at me to start the truck and drive away. But I'm a park ranger. This is my valley, my responsibility. I stepped out into the freezing air. The woman didn't move, didn't turn. Just stood there, 20 feet away, her back to me. Ma'am? My voice sounded too loud in the silence. The park is closed. You can't be here. She turned her head, not her body, just her head, twisting at an angle that wasn't right. In the moonlight, I saw the rope around her neck, the deep purple bruises on her throat, the gray-white color of her skin. She smiled at me. "Hello, Ezra Thornhill," she said. Her voice sounded like wind through dead leaves. "I've been waiting for you." I ran. I'm not proud of it, but I ran back to my reader, truck, fumbled with my keys, and peeled out of there like the devil himself was chasing me. My hands shook so hard I could barely grip the steering wheel. The heater blasted, but I couldn't get warm. By the time I got home, I'd almost convinced myself it was a hallucination. Lack of sleep, stress from the deaths, maybe carbon monoxide from a leak in my truck. But when I walked in my front door, I smelled something wrong. Herbs. Old dried herbs. The scent filled my house, sharp and earthy and ancient. Every window was open. I live alone, and I know I'd locked everything before I left. On my kitchen table sat a small cloth bag tied with twine, the kind of thing you'd see in a museum. Inside were dried leaves, a lock of hair that looked like mine, and 3 rusty nails. A witch bottle. The old kind mountain people used to make for protection or curses. I called in sick the next day. First time in 14 years. I spent the morning researching everything I could find about Mary Whitlock. She wasn't from Cades Cove originally. She'd come to the mountains in 1843, a widow with knowledge of herbs and healing. People went to her when they were sick, when the doctor was too far away or too expensive. She helped deliver babies. She made medicines from plants. Then children started dying. 3 kids in 2 years. Fevers, mostly. Things that killed children back then because they didn't have modern medicine. But grief-stricken parents needed someone to blame. And a woman living alone in the woods who knew about herbs and healing? In the 1,840 seconds, that was enough. The trial lasted 1 day. 13 families testified, but it was Mordecai Thornhill's words that convicted her. He swore he'd seen her dancing naked under the full moon. Said he found dead animals arranged in circles near her cabin. Claimed his own son had gotten sick after drinking her tea. All lies. I knew they were lies because I found something else in the historical society, my great-great-grandfather's private journal, never meant for other eyes. The truth was simple and ugly. Mary Whitlock owned 60 acres of valuable timberland. Mordecai wanted it. After she was hanged, he bought the property from the county for almost nothing, cut the timber, and made a fortune. My family's wealth, the land we still own, the good name we carry, all of it was built on the murder of an innocent woman. I was still processing this when my phone rang. It was my ex-wife, Karen. "Emma's so excited to visit you next week," she said. "She's been talking about it nonstop. The mountains, the old cabins, all of it." My blood went cold. Actually, I was thinking maybe this isn't the best time. There's been some incidents at the park. "Ezra, she's been planning this for months. You can't cancel on her again." "I'm not canceling, I just think you promised. After the divorce, you promised you'd make time for her. She needs her father." I closed my eyes. "You're right. Of course. I can't wait to see her." After we hung up, I sat there staring at the witch bottle on my table. I had 5 days until Emma arrived. 5 days to figure out what was happening and how to stop it. That night, I went back to Cades Cove. This time, I came prepared. I brought flashlights, a camera, and a voice recorder. I also brought my grandfather's old Bible and a pocket full of salt. I felt ridiculous doing it, but after last night, I wasn't taking chances. The cabin looked different in the dark. Older somehow. More wrong. The temperature started dropping the moment I stepped out of my truck. "Mary Whitlock," I called out. My voice echoed across the empty valley. "I know you're here. I know what my ancestor did to you. I want to talk." For a long moment, nothing. Just the sound of wind through trees and my own hammering heart. Then she stepped out of the cabin. Not through the door, she just appeared. As if she'd been standing there all along in a spot where my eyes couldn't quite focus. She looked more solid this time. More real. I could see details I'd missed before. The rope burns on her neck. The embroidered flowers on her dress collar. the wedding ring still on her finger. "You want to talk?" she said. It wasn't a question. "Your ancestor didn't want to talk. He just wanted my land." "I know," I said. "I read his journal. I know what he did. I know you were innocent." She tilted her head, studying me. "Do you know how it feels to hang? Your neck doesn't break if they do it wrong. You just dangle there, choking. Takes minutes to die, minutes of pain and terror while people watch." I swallowed hard. "I'm sorry. For what he did, for what all of them did." "Sorry," she laughed, and it sounded like breaking glass. "Ezra Thornhill is sorry." "How wonderful. Does your sorry bring back the 177 years I've been dead? Does it undo the curse?" "What curse?" "The families that died, they had nothing to do with what happened to you. They died in your family's cabin, on your family's land. Land stolen from me." She moved closer, and even though she didn't walk, just seemed to glide, I could smell her. Earth and decay and old, dried herbs. But they weren't the point. They were just practice. "Practice for what?" She smiled. "For you, Ezra, and for your daughter." My heart stopped. "You leave Emma out of this." "Emma." Mary spoke my daughter's name like she was tasting it. 8 years old. Pretty child. Loves stories about the old days. "She'll be here next week, won't she?" "If you touch her, you'll what?" Mary's eyes went black, completely black, no white at all. "I'm already dead, Ezra Thornhill. Your ancestor made sure of that. There's nothing you can do to me that's worse than what's already been done." She vanished, just gone, like smoke and wind. I stood there shaking, my phone in my hand, ready to call Karen and tell her Emma couldn't come. But what would I say? That a ghost threatened our daughter? She'd think I'd lost my mind. When I got back to my truck, all 4 tires were flat. Slashed, though I hadn't heard a sound. Carved into the driver's side door, deep grooves in the metal, were words. *5 days times I walked the 3 miles home in the freezing dark. The next morning, I went to see Dr. Helen Morrison, a folklorist at the University of Tennessee who specialized in Appalachian history. I'd worked with her before on historical interpretation for the park. "Ezra," she said when I showed her copies of the trial documents and Mordecai's journal. This is huge. If you can prove Mary Whitlock was innocent, it would completely change our understanding of witch trials in this region." "That's not why I'm here." I leaned forward. "I need to know everything about curses. Death curses specifically. The kind someone might speak before they're executed." Helen's expression changed. "Why?" I told her. Not everything I didn't mention seeing Mary's ghost, but I told her about the deaths, the pattern, the timing. She was quiet for a long time. Then she pulled out an old book from her shelf, pages yellow and brittle. "In traditional Appalachian belief," she said slowly, "a death curse is one of the most powerful forms of magic. The moment of death, especially a wrongful death, creates a crack in reality. The dying person's will can reach through that crack. How do you break it? That's the thing, Ezra. You don't. Not really. A death curse ends when its conditions are met. If Mary Whitlock cursed your bloodline, then the curse will continue until..." She trailed off. "Until what?" "Until your bloodline ends. Or until justice is done." "What does justice mean? She's dead. Everyone who hurt her is dead." Helen shook her head. "Not everyone. You're still here. You carry Mordecai's blood. You inherited his land, his wealth, his name." I left her office feeling worse than when I'd arrived. That night, Emma called me. Just a regular call to say hi and talk about her week at school. The sound of her voice, happy, innocent, excited to see me, made me want to cry. "Daddy, I had a dream about you last night," she said. "Yeah? What kind of dream?" "There was a nice lady in an old-fashioned dress. She said she was going to visit us when I come to see you. She said she wants to teach me songs from the old days." My blood turned to ice. What did this lady look like? She was pretty, but sad. She had a red mark around her neck, like a necklace. She said not to be scared. She said she's been waiting for me. Emma, listen to me very carefully. If you see that lady again, in your dreams or anywhere else, I want you to tell Mommy right away. Promise me. "Okay, Daddy. You sound worried." "I'm not worried, sweetheart. I love you so much. You know that, right?" "I love you too, Daddy." After we hung up, I sat in my dark house and tried to figure out what to do. Call Karen and cancel the visit? She'd never believe me. Get a protective order against a ghost? The police would think I was crazy. I was out of options and out of time. At midnight, my doorbell rang. I opened it to find my front porch covered in dead birds. Dozens of them. Cardinals, jays, sparrows. All arranged in a perfect circle. In the center of the circle stood a little girl I'd never seen before. Maybe 7 years old, wearing a nightgown from another century. "Mr. Thornhill," she said in a voice too old for her body. "Miss Mary says it's time for you to understand." Before I could react, the world tilted sideways. I wasn't in my house anymore. I was standing in a crowd of people in old-fashioned clothes. Cades Cove, but not as I knew it. This was 1847. I watched as they dragged Mary Whitlock up to a hanging tree. She was screaming, begging, crying out that she was innocent. The crowd jeered. Someone threw a rock that split her lip, and there, oh God, there stood a man who looked exactly like me. Same face, same build, same eyes. My great-great-grandfather Mordecai. He was smiling. I tried to move, to speak, to do something, but I could only watch as they put the noose around her neck. Watch as Mordecai shouted for them to hurry up. Watch as Mary locked eyes with him in her final moment. "Your children," she screamed. "Your children's children, down through every generation, you will pay, Mordecai Thornhill. Blood for blood, life for life, until the debt is settled." Then she fell, and the rope pulled tight, and she kicked and choked and died while people cheered. I came back to myself on my knees on my front porch, vomiting into the dead birds. The little girl was gone. In her place stood Mary Whitlock. "Now you understand," she said. "Now you know what your family is built on." "Please," I gasped. "My daughter, she's innocent. She never hurt you." "Neither did I." Mary's voice was cold. "But they hanged me anyway. And do you know what your ancestor did the next day? He went to the county office and bought my land. 60 acres for $40. He cut down my trees, sold the timber, built his fortune. I'll give it back. The land, the money, everything. I don't want your money, Ezra Thornhill. I want justice. Then take me, take my life, and end the curse. Just leave Emma alone." Mary smiled, and it was terrible. "Oh, I will take your life. But not yet. First, you need to watch what's going to happen to your daughter. You need to feel what I felt, helpless, hopeless, watching someone you love suffer." She vanished. I called Karen immediately, despite it being past 1 a.m. "Don't bring Emma," I said as soon as she answered. "Please. Something's wrong. Something's—" "Ezra, are you drunk?" "I'm not drunk. I'm serious. Do not bring—" "What are here?" There was a long pause. "We're already here." My heart stopped. "What? We wanted to surprise you. We're at that motel just outside the park." Emma was so excited she couldn't wait another week, so I took her out of school early. "We're coming to see you first thing tomorrow morning." The line went dead. I tried to call back, but my phone was dead despite being fully charged a moment ago. On my front porch, Frost spelled out words in perfect cursive. *2 late times. I drove to the motel at 2 a.m., speeding through mountain roads in the dark. My hands shook on the wheel. The temperature kept dropping 30 degrees, 25, 20. The motel parking lot was empty except for Karen's car. I pounded on their room door. "Karen, Emma, open up." No answer. I ran to the front desk. The night clerk, half asleep, gave me a key after I showed him my ranger badge and told him it was an emergency. The room was freezing. Ice covered the windows from the inside. Karen lay on the bed, eyes wide open but unseeing, frost in her hair. She was breathing, but barely. Emma wasn't there. On the bathroom mirror, written in frost, *Cades Cove times I ran. The valley was pitch black when I arrived. My headlights barely penetrated the fog that had rolled in, thick and unnatural. I drove straight to the Thornhill cabin, knowing that's where Mary would be. Emma stood in front of the cabin, wearing her pajamas despite the freezing cold. She stared at the old building with empty eyes. "Emma!" I jumped out of the truck and ran to her. She didn't turn, didn't blink, just stared. "Emma, baby, it's Dad. We need to go. She's not yours anymore." Mary Whitlock's voice came from everywhere and nowhere. "She's mine now. My vessel. My justice. Emma turned to me. Her eyes were completely black. "Hello, Ezra," she said in Mary's voice. "Let me show you what it's like to watch your child die." Emma walked toward the cabin. I tried to grab her, but she moved impossibly fast, slipping through my hands like smoke. "Stop!" I screamed. "Take me, I'm the one you want." Mary appeared beside me, more solid than I'd ever seen her, real enough to touch. The noose still hung around her neck. "I've waited 177 years for this moment," she said. "I've killed 5 generations of Thornhills, watched them die in terror, just like I died. But you're special. You look just like him. Same face, same voice. When I kill you, it'll be like killing him." Around us, the dead rose. Not zombies or shambling corpses, ghosts, transparent figures in old-fashioned clothes. Men, women, children. All with the same terror frozen on their faces that I'd seen on the Hendersons, the Martinezes, all the others. "My victims," Mary said. 5 generations of Thornhills. They all died, just like this, helpless, hopeless, watching me take their children before I took them. Emma reached the cabin door. It swung open on its own. "She's going to walk inside," Mary said, "and she's going to hang herself with rope I've prepared. You'll watch her kick and struggle and choke, just like they watched me. Then, when she's dead, you'll join her." "No." I moved toward the cabin, but the ghosts surrounded me, cold hands holding me back. "There's nothing you can do, Ezra. No way to stop this. Your family's debt comes due tonight." Emma stepped inside the dark cabin. I heard her footsteps on the old wood floor, saw the rope hanging from the ceiling beam, the noose already tied, and I realized Mary was wrong. There was one thing I could do. "You're right," I said. "My family does owe a debt. Mordecai murdered you, stole from you, built everything we have on your death." "Finally, admitting it changes nothing," Mary hissed. "I'm not finished." I stopped struggling against the ghosts. "You want justice? Real justice? Then take it. Take my life. But let Emma go. She's innocent. She never benefited from what Mordecai did. She never even knew about it. If you kill her, you're doing exactly what they did to you, killing an innocent to satisfy your rage." Mary's face twisted. "She's a Thornhill. She carries his blood. So did all of them." I gestured at the ghosts. "Every person you killed over 5 generations. How many were children, Mary? How many were innocent?" The ghosts flickered, their grips loosening slightly. "How many children did you save when you were alive?" I pressed on. "How many babies did you help deliver? How many sick kids did you heal with your herbs? That's who you were. Not this. Not a child killer. They made me this." Mary screamed, and the wind picked up, howling through the valley. "They took everything from me." "I know, and you have every right to be angry, every right to want revenge. So take it. Take me. I'm offering myself freely. No curse, no force. Just justice. My life for yours. An end to the cycle." Inside the cabin, Emma stood beneath the noose. I could hear Mary's voice speaking through her, old songs in a language I didn't know. "Let her go," I said. "Please. If there's any part of you that remembers what it was like to be human, to be good, let her go. She's 8 years old, the same age as some of the children you saved. Don't let Mordecai's evil turn you into him." Silence. The wind died. The ghost stared at me with hollow eyes. Mary stood perfectly still, and for the first time since I'd seen her, she looked uncertain. "I've been dead for so long," she whispered. "I don't remember what it was like to be anything else." "Then let me help you remember. Let me make this right. Not the way Mordecai would have, with more lies and more death. The right way, with truth and sacrifice." A single tear ran down Mary's gray cheek. Inside the cabin, Emma collapsed. The black faded from her eyes. She looked around, confused and scared. "Daddy? I'm here, baby. Come to me. Come on." Emma ran out of the cabin and into my arms. She was freezing cold and shaking. Mary watched us. The rage had left her face. Now she just looked tired. So tired. "Your life," she said. "Freely given?" I held Emma tight, memorizing the feel of her in my arms. "Freely given." "Daddy, what's happening?" Emma's voice was small and scared. "It's okay, sweetheart. Everything's going to be okay. I kissed the top of her head. I love you so much. I need you to know that. Whatever happens, I love you. Mary stepped forward. She raised one pale hand and placed it over my heart. Ezra Thornhill, she said formally. Do you accept responsibility for Mordecai Thornhill's crimes against me? Do you offer your life in payment for his debt? I do. Her hand felt like ice through my chest. My heart slowed. The world grew dim at the edges. But then something strange happened. The ghosts of the other Thornhills moved forward. They placed their hands on me, two cold touches on my shoulders, my back, my arms. We accept responsibility too, they said in unison. Voices of 5 generations speaking as one. We lived on stolen land. We benefited from stolen wealth. We knew the truth, or should have known, and did nothing. The debt is ours, as much as his. Their touch was different from Mary's, not draining, but sharing. The burden spread across all of us. 6 generations of Thornhills finally accepting what we'd been built on. Mary's expression changed. Surprise, confusion, and then something I hadn't seen before, peace. Justice, she whispered. Not revenge. Justice. The noose around her neck dissolved. The gray color faded from her skin. For just a moment, she looked alive again, the woman she'd been before. Mordecai's lies destroyed her. Thank you, she said. Then she was gone. Really gone. Not just invisible. I could feel the absence of her, like a weight lifted from the valley. The other ghosts faded too, one by one, finally at rest. I collapsed to my knees, gasping. Emma held on to me, crying. It's okay, I told her, though I wasn't sure if it was. It's over. I spent 2 days in the hospital. The doctors couldn't explain what had happened to me. My heart had stopped for 3 minutes, but here I was, alive. Emma was fine. Scared but unharmed. Karen agreed to let her stay with me for a while after I explained some of what had happened. Not all of it. Some truths are too heavy for anyone to carry. The deaths at Cades Cove stopped. No more mysterious families found dead in locked cabins. The park reopened that section of the valley. But something had changed in me. I could see them now, ghosts, spirits, echoes of the dead. Not all the time, but sometimes. When I walked through Cades Cove, I'd catch glimpses of the old settlers going about their daily lives. In the cemetery, I'd see transparent figures standing by graves. And I could feel injustice. Real injustice, the kind that leaves scars on reality. I'd walk into a place and know something wrong had happened there. It was like Mary had given me a gift before she left, or maybe a curse of a different kind. A responsibility. I used my family's money, the fortune built on Mary's death, to establish a foundation. We research historical injustices in Appalachian communities. Find the truth about people who were wrongly accused, wrongly executed, written out of history. We try to set the record straight. Mary Whitlock now has a proper memorial in Cades Cove. Her story is told honestly, the good she did, the evil done to her. Her real story, not Mordecai's lies. Emma comes to visit often. She has the gift too, though hers is different. She can tell when people are lying, when they're hiding guilt. She wants to be a lawyer when she grows up. To help people who aren't believed, she says. I should be proud of her. I am proud of her. But sometimes I worry about the burden we've given her. This ability to see the darkness in people. 3 months after everything happened, I was closing up the visitor center when I felt it again, that sensation of wrongness, of injustice echoing through time. In the parking lot stood a woman. Not a ghost, but something else. Something ancient. She wore modern clothes, but her eyes were too old, too knowing. Ezra Thornhill, she said. The man who satisfied a witch's curse without becoming a monster himself. That's rare. Who are you? She smiled. Someone who watches. Someone who knows that your valley isn't the only place where old crimes leave new wounds. There's a town in eastern Kentucky. A coal mine. 23 men died there in 1962, and everyone said it was an accident. But it wasn't. And now something is waking up, angry and hungry for justice. Why are you telling me this? Because you understand now. Justice matters. Truth matters. The dead remember, even when the living forget. She started to turn away, then paused. You've been chosen, Ezra. Whether you wanted it or not, guardians are needed, People who stand between the restless dead and the innocent living. People who make sure old sins don't poison the present. And if I refuse? Then 23 angry ghosts will start killing minors. Good men, innocent men. Just like Mary killed innocent Thornhills before she found peace. The woman looked me in the eye. You broke a cycle of violence. Now you get to prevent others. Lucky you. She walked away and disappeared into the twilight. I stood there in the parking lot as night fell over Cades Cove. Somewhere in Kentucky, 23 ghosts were waiting. Somewhere else, other spirits were trapped in their own cycles of rage and revenge. I thought about Mary Whitlock, about justice and mercy, about debts that echo through generations. Then I got in my truck and started driving east. Emma texted me halfway. There, asterisk. Be safe, Dad. Come home soon. I love you. Asterisk. I texted back. Asterisk. Always, sweetheart. This is important work. Someone has to do it. Asterisk. Because that's the truth I learned in that freezing September when a dead witch taught me what justice really means. Sometimes the dead don't rest until the truth is told. Sometimes curses end only when someone finally does the right thing. And sometimes, when you settle one ghost, you discover there are thousands more waiting for someone to hear their stories. I keep a bag packed now. The work is never finished. The dead are patient, but they don't forget, and neither do I. My name is Jackson Redwolf, and I've been a ranger in the Cherokee National Forest for 18 years. That's long enough to know every trail, every creek bed, every hidden hollow in these mountains. Long enough to understand that some things can't be explained by science or common sense. I'm 44 now, tall and lean from years of walking these hills. My grandmother raised me half the time when I was young, teaching me the old Cherokee ways of tracking and reading the forest. The other half, I was in school learning biology and forestry management. I guess you could say I walk between two worlds, the modern one and the ancient one my ancestors knew. Most days, I teach survival classes to other rangers. I'm good at finding lost hikers, real good. In my entire career, I've never taken more than 24 hours to locate someone who wandered off the trail. The forest speaks to me in ways it doesn't speak to others. My grandmother used to say I had the gift. 3 years ago, my wife Sarah died out here. They said it was a bear attack, but something about it never sat right with me. The wounds were wrong. The location was wrong. Bears don't hunt like that. I tried telling the investigators, but they looked at me like I was crazy with grief. Maybe I was. I never remarried, never even dated. These mountains became my whole life after that. It's August now, the hottest one on record. The forest is bone dry, and the animals are acting strange. Everything feels wrong this summer. Too quiet. You know that feeling when you walk into a room and sense something bad happened there? The whole forest feels like that room. 5 experienced backpackers have disappeared in the past month. Not greenhorns, who don't know a compass from a canteen. I'm talking about serious outdoors people. The kind who can survive for weeks with just a knife and some paracord. All of them vanish during the new moon, when the nights are darkest. The park superintendent called me into his office last Tuesday. Jackson, you know these woods better than anyone, he said. The media's starting to circle. We need answers. I took the assignment because it's my job, but also because something in my gut told me these disappearances were connected to Sarah. I couldn't explain how I knew, I just knew. The Joyce-Kilmer Wilderness is special, even by mountain standards. Some of these trees are over 400 years old. Their canopy so thick that your cell phone becomes a useless brick the moment you step off the main trail. This was Cherokee hunting ground long before it became a park. My grandmother told me stories about these hills, about sacred places that don't like being disturbed, about spirits that guard the old ways. I never believed in that stuff. Not really. I believed in tracks and evidence and logical explanations. That was before I started tracking the thing that took those hikers. The first place I searched was where the most recent victim disappeared. A guy named Marcus Chen, 32, Eagle Scout, climbed Denali twice. His car was still parked at the trailhead, keys tucked under the driver's side floor mat like he planned to come back. I found his camp on the second day. The tent was still standing, perfectly staked. His sleeping bag was laid out neat. Coffee pot sat on a cold fire ring. But Marcus was gone, and his boots were still by the tent door. Nobody walks off into these mountains barefoot. Nobody. I circled outward from the camp, reading the ground the way my grandmother taught me. At first, I found normal tracks Marcus's boot prints heading toward the creek for water. Then I found where he'd stopped suddenly. You could see it in the way his feet dug in, the way he'd turned fast. Then his tracks just changed. I've tracked hundreds of people through these woods. I know how a human walks, how our weight distributes, how our stride changes over different terrain. What I was looking at didn't make sense. Marcus's boot prints led toward a grove of old-growth poplars, normal walking pace, normal stride. Then suddenly, between one step and the next, they became bear tracks, huge ones. Grizzly-sized, except we don't have grizzlies in North Carolina. I knelt down and studied the transition point. There was no scuff mark, no indication he'd stepped out of his boots. The boot print just became a bear print. Same depth, same direction, like one had morphed into the other. I stood up and looked around. The forest was completely silent. No birds, no insects, nothing. The back of my neck prickled. "You're being stupid," I said out loud, just to hear something. There's a logical explanation, but I'd already checked the other 4 disappearance sites. I'd found the same impossible transition at each one. Human tracks becoming bear tracks, right in mid-stride. I followed the bear prints deeper into the forest. They led me to a place my grandmother had warned me about when I was young, a clearing containing 3 ancient burial mounds. Cherokee elders were buried there, back before the Trail of Tears forced most of our people west. The mounds looked disturbed. Someone had been digging. Around the largest mound, I found Marcus's gear, his backpack, his water bottles, his GPS unit. They were arranged in a pattern, a circle around the mound, each item placed precisely. The backpack had been ripped open by claws, deep gouges in the nylon that could only come from something big. Then I found the blood. Not a lot, just drops leading away from the mound into the thickest part of the forest where even I rarely went. The drops were spaced far apart, like whatever was bleeding had been moving fast, or been carried. I should have radioed for backup. That's protocol. But my radio was already crackling with static, useless in this part of the forest. And something told me that if I left now, I'd never find the truth. I followed the blood trail for 2 miles. The forest got darker, the canopy thicker. The temperature dropped 10 degrees. My breath came out in clouds, even though it was August. That's when I heard it. A sound halfway between a growl and human speech. Words in a language I almost recognized, Old Cherokee, the kind my grandmother spoke when she told the ancient stories. I froze, every sense alert. The sound came again, from a thicket ahead. I could see something moving in there, something big. I unholstered my sidearm. Fat lot of good a 9mm would do against a bear, but it made me feel better. "This is Ranger Red Wolf," I called out. "Identify yourself." The movement stopped. Then, slowly, a figure emerged from the thicket. It was a man, old, maybe 70, dressed in clothes that looked homemade from buckskin. His face was weathered and dark, eyes so black they looked like holes. He stared at me with an expression I couldn't read. "You are Red Wolf," he said. His voice sounded rusty, like he hadn't used it in years. "Your grandmother was Aida of the Wolf Clan." My blood went cold. My grandmother had been dead for 20 years. Her Cherokee name wasn't in any official records. "Who are you?" I asked. "I am Sonohi," he said. "I died in 1838 when the soldiers came. I was killed protecting these sacred grounds. I was given a choice by the spirits: rest in peace, or return as guardian. I chose to guard what remains of our people's holy places. I should have laughed. I should have called for backup on my dead radio. I should have done anything except stand there listening. But something about him felt true, felt real in a way that logic couldn't touch. "The hikers," I said. "What happened to them?" His face hardened. "They desecrated the sacred places. They dug in the burial mounds looking for artifacts. They trampled the medicine wheels. They took plants from the spirit groves. Each one ignored the warnings." "What warnings?" "The forest warns," he said. "The birds flee, the animals hide. The very air grows cold. Those who have ears to hear can sense when they've crossed into protected ground. But these people," he spat, "they hear nothing. feel nothing. They see only a playground for their hiking boots. Where are they? I demanded. Where are the bodies? Return to the earth, Sonohi said. Given back to the land they violated. He began to change. I want to say it happened slowly, that I could have run, but it was instantaneous. One moment, an old man stood before me. The next, a massive black bear bigger than any bear I'd ever seen, with eyes that remained horribly human. I fired my weapon. All 15 rounds. The bullets had no effect. They didn't even leave marks. The bear spoke with Sonohi's voice. You cannot kill what is already dead, grandson of Aida. But I will not harm you. Not yet. You have Cherokee blood. You may yet prove worthy of understanding. Then he was gone, crashing through the underbrush so fast I couldn't track his movement. I stood there shaking, gun empty, mind reeling. I'd just met a shape-shifting spirit. A guardian that killed to protect Cherokee sacred sites. And he'd called me worthy of understanding. I didn't go back to the ranger station. Couldn't. How do you report something like that? I'd sound insane. Hell, maybe I was insane. Instead, I made camp near the burial mounds and waited for dark. If Sonohi hunted during the new moon, I had 2 nights to figure this out before the next cycle began. That night, my grandmother came to me in a dream. Not a memory, a real visitation. I know the difference. You've met the Kekle Kudle, she said, using the old Cherokee word for bear walker. The shapeshifter. He was a great warrior in life, Jackson. He died protecting our people's sacred places from settlers who wanted to loot and destroy. The spirits gave him eternal guardianship, but guardianship without mercy becomes vengeance. How do I stop him? I asked. You don't stop him, she said. You can't, but you can guide him. Remind him of the Cherokee way teaching before punishment, understanding before judgment. He's been alone too long. He's forgotten that our people believed in balance. I woke at dawn, her words echoing in my head. The next morning, I found fresh tracks. More hikers had entered the protected zone, a group of teenagers, from the look of it. They'd camped near an old medicine wheel site, a circle of stones my ancestors used for ceremonies. I ran, practically flew through the forest, using every shortcut I knew. I found them just past noon. 6 kids, maybe 17 or 18 years old, college students on a summer adventure. They'd found the medicine wheel and were posing for photos, standing on the sacred stones, laughing. One of them had spray-painted his name across the largest stone. Get off of that, I shouted. Get off right now. They jumped, startled. A blonde girl in expensive hiking gear looked at me annoyed. Dude, chill. It's just some old rocks. Those rocks are a Cherokee sacred site, I said, trying to keep my voice level. You're desecrating a holy place. A guy with a backwards cap laughed. Sacred? Bro, it's 2025. That Native American stuff is just superstition. I felt the temperature drop. The birds went silent. The forest itself seemed to hold its breath. Run, I said quietly. Run right now, back to your cars. Don't look back. Go. What? No way, man. We just got here. The scream came from the tree line. A girl's voice, cut off mid-cry. One of the teenagers, I think her name was Maya, had wandered to the edge of the clearing. Now she was gone. Just gone. Like something had yanked her into the forest. The other kids stood frozen for one heartbeat. Then they panicked, scattering in every direction. No, I yelled. Stay together. Stay in the clearing. But they were already running, crashing through the underbrush like spooked deer. I chased after the nearest 2, the blonde girl and backwards cap guy. They were heading deeper into the protected zone, exactly the wrong direction. I could hear something moving parallel to us. Something big, keeping pace easily. The kids heard it too. They ran faster, terror overriding sense. We reached a ravine. The kids scrambled down, sliding on loose rocks. I followed, trying to keep them in sight. At the bottom, backwards cap guy stopped to catch his breath. What is that thing? He gasped. What's chasing us? Something that thinks you don't respect these mountains? I said. Something that's been protecting this land for almost 200 years. You're crazy, the blonde girl said. This is just backwards cap guy's head snapped to the side, like he'd been punched by an invisible fist. Blood sprayed. He dropped without a sound. The girl screamed. I spun around and saw it Sonohi, in his bear form, massive and terrible, standing on the ridge above us. His human eyes glared down with cold judgment. "Run," I told the girl. "Run toward the creek. Follow it downstream. Don't stop." She ran. I stood between her and the bear walker. "Sonohi," I said. "These are children. They didn't know. Nobody taught them." The bear spoke. "Ignorance is not innocence. They were told to leave. They refused. They mocked the sacred. They destroyed what took my people generations to build. Then let me teach them," I said. "Let me show them the right way. Isn't that more Cherokee than killing?" The bear considered this. For a moment I thought I'd reached him. Then he said, "One has already died. One more must die. Balance demands it. The one who painted his name over sacred symbols, he condemned himself. Let the girl run, she may yet learn." He vanished into the forest. I found the spray paint kid 3 hours later. He was arranged. At the base of the medicine wheel's largest stone, the one he'd defaced. His body was positioned like he was sleeping. Peaceful. But his chest had been opened by claws, and his heart was missing. The remaining 4 teenagers I found scattered through the forest, traumatized but alive. The blonde girl was crying by the creek. Maya, the first one taken, turned up with scratches and bruises, but nothing worse. Sonohi had released her as a warning. They'd all gotten the message. They understood now, on a level deeper than words, that some places demand respect. But 2 kids were dead. 2 families would be destroyed, and I'd stood by and let it happen. Because part of me, the part that remembered my grandmother's teachings, that knew how our sacred sites had been systematically destroyed and disrespected for centuries, part of me thought Sonohi was right. That thought terrified me more than anything. I took the surviving teenagers back to the ranger station. They were processed, given medical attention, interviewed by local police. I filed my report. Bear attack, tragic accident, warned the kids not to approach wildlife. Nobody questioned it. Why would they? The wounds matched, the evidence fit, but I knew the truth. And I knew I couldn't let it continue. That night, I returned to the burial mounds alone. I brought offerings: tobacco, cornmeal, things my grandmother taught me to give when asking for guidance from spirits. "Sonohi," I called into the darkness. "I need to speak with you, as one Cherokee to another, as someone who understands what was taken from our people." The forest remained silent for a long time. Then he appeared, in human form this time, sitting on top of the largest burial mound. "You protected the desecrators," he said. It wasn't a question. "I protected children who didn't understand what they were doing," I replied. "There's a difference." "Is there?" He gestured at the forest around us. "For 2 centuries, I've watched people come here. They cut down sacred trees. They looted burial sites. They built their roads and trails and visitor centers over places where our ancestors prayed. When do we say enough? When do we fight back? We fight back by surviving," I said. "By teaching. By making sure our culture doesn't die. But not by killing, Sonohi. That's not the Cherokee way. You know it isn't." "I know nothing," he roared, and for a moment the bear showed through his human face. "I know I was murdered protecting these grounds. I know my wife and children were forced west on the Trail of Tears while I rotted in this earth. I know that everything we held sacred has been treated like tourist attractions. Tell me, Ranger, what would you do? What would you do if given power to protect what you love?" I thought of Sarah, of how I'd wanted to hunt down whatever killed her, of the rage and grief that still lived in my chest 3 years later. "I'd want revenge," I admitted. "But revenge isn't justice, and justice isn't the same as protection." He was quiet for a moment. "You speak like your grandmother." She understood the balance. "Then teach me to maintain it," I said. "Work with me. I'll make sure people understand these places are sacred. I'll educate visitors. I'll create programs that teach Cherokee culture and history. But you have to stop killing, please. And if they continue to desecrate, if they ignore your teachings, then we find other ways," I said. "Legal ways. We get the sites protected by law. We work with the Cherokee Nation." "We, the Cherokee Nation, abandoned these lands," Sonohi interrupted. "When they were forced west, they left these sacred places behind. I am all that remains to guard them." "Then let me help you guard them," I said. "Let me be your eyes and ears in the modern world. I can see things you can't. Talk to people you can't reach. Together, we can protect these places better than you can alone. He studied me for a long time. You would bind yourself to this duty? Become a guardian as I am? Yes. It will change you, he warned. You will see things mortals aren't meant to see. You will hear the voices of spirits, feel the pain of the land. You will walk between the living world and the spirit world for the rest of your days. Your life will never be normal again. I thought of Sarah, of her impossible death. It's never been normal. Not really. So no, he stood. Then we will perform the old ceremony, the binding ritual. But know this, Jackson Redwolf, if you fail in your duty, if you allow the sacred places to be truly destroyed, I will be forced to resume my hunting. That is the nature of my guardianship. I cannot choose mercy if balance is broken. I understand. The ritual took most of the night. He cut his palm and mine, mixing our blood. He spoke words in Cherokee that I barely understood, calling on spirits and ancestors. The forest around us seemed to come alive, pressing close, watching. When it was done, I could feel the difference immediately. The forest sang to me in ways it never had before. I could sense the sacred sites like points of light in my mind. I could feel when someone approached them, feel their intentions, respect or disrespect, curiosity or greed. I could also feel Sonohi, a presence always at the edge of my awareness. We were connected now, bound together as guardians. The killing stops, I said. From this night forward, we protect through teaching, not death. Sonohi nodded slowly. I will try to remember mercy. But you must not fail, Jackson Redwolf. The sacred places depend on both of us now. That was 3 months ago. Since then, I've created a Cherokee cultural education program for the park. Every visitor to the Joyce Kilmer Wilderness now receives a map showing sacred sites and an explanation of why they must be respected. I teach classes twice a week on Cherokee history and traditional forest practices. The desecrations have stopped. People listen. They learn. And when they don't, when someone approaches a sacred site with bad intentions, I feel it. I can reach them before they do damage. I can teach them before Sonohi has to intervene. He's kept his word. No more killings, though I sometimes sense his frustration when I stop him from punishing someone who truly deserves it. The teenagers who survived, they've become advocates. The blonde girl, her name is Emma, started a social media campaign about respecting indigenous sacred sites. She's got 500,000 followers now. The message is spreading farther than I ever could have spread it alone. I've also been working with the Cherokee Nation, helping them reclaim and protect sites on federal land. We've gotten 3 burial grounds legally protected in the past month. Real, lasting protection. My children, Sarah's children, are growing up understanding their heritage in ways I never did. I'm teaching them what my grandmother taught me and what Sonohi teaches me in return. They'll be the next generation of guardians. Sometimes, late at night, I walk the protected zones. I feel the other spirits now, not just Sonohi, but older presences. Cherokee elders who never left, who watch over these mountains still. They speak to me in dreams, showing me where new threats emerge, where the land needs healing. I'm not just a park ranger anymore. I'm a bridge between worlds, between past and present, between Cherokee tradition and modern protection. It's a lonely path sometimes, but it's the right one. Last week, a trail camera captured something impossible, a massive black bear standing on its hind legs, watching a group of respectful hikers pass by. In the image, you can barely make out a human face hidden in the bear's features. I deleted that footage. Some things the world isn't ready to understand. But I kept a copy. Because sometimes, on hard days, when I doubt myself, I need to remember that I'm not crazy. That the impossible things I see are real, that my purpose matters. The forest is quiet tonight. The good kind of quiet, not the warning kind. I can feel Sonohi out there, patrolling the boundaries. I can feel the ancient spirits at rest, satisfied that their sacred places are finally being honored. This morning, a young family asked me about the medicine wheel. The father wanted to take a selfie there. I took 20 minutes to explain what the site meant, why it was sacred, how his respect would honor thousands of years of Cherokee tradition. He listened. He understood. He took his photo from a respectful distance and thanked me for teaching him. That's the real victory. not preventing desecration through fear, but encouraging respect through understanding. My grandmother would be proud. And somewhere in these ancient mountains, I like to think Sarah is proud too. Maybe she understands now what really killed her, not a bear, but a guardian spirit enforcing protection the only way it knew how. I couldn't save her, but I can make sure her death, and the deaths of everyone who came before, weren't meaningless. The sacred places will be protected. The old ways will be remembered. And the mountain stalker and I, guardian and ghost, man and spirit, will walk these forests together, keeping the balance between what was and what must be. Some traditions are worth dying for. This tradition, I'll live for instead. My name is Caleb Whitman, and I've been a park ranger at Red River Gorge for 20 years. Before that, I taught geology at the University of Kentucky. People always ask why I gave up a comfortable teaching job to spend my days crawling through caves and mapping underground rivers. The truth is, I saw something during a research expedition that I couldn't explain with textbooks and theories. Something that made me realize the mountains were hiding secrets deeper than any limestone cavern. I'm 46 now, with a salt and pepper beard and hands scarred from 2 decades of rock climbing. My truck smells like wet stone, and the specialized equipment I carry: ropes, headlamps, air quality monitors, geological hammers. Most rangers focus on trails and campers. I focus on what's beneath their feet. June 1981 was unusually wet. Spring rains had pounded the gorge for weeks, raising the underground water levels higher than I'd seen in years. Water does strange things to limestone. It opens new passages, closes old ones, rearranges the whole hidden world below the forest floor. That's what I told myself when I first noticed the cave. It appeared on the north face of Sky Bridge Ridge, right where my maps showed solid rock. I'd surveyed that cliff face a dozen times. There had never been an opening there before. I stood at the entrance on a Tuesday morning, my coffee getting cold in my hand. The opening was about 5 feet high, just wide enough for a person to squeeze through. The edges looked smooth, too smooth. Natural cave entrances are rough and jagged. This looked like someone had taken a giant drill and bored straight into the mountain. From inside, I heard something that made my skin prickle. Tap, 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 rhythmic, deliberate, like someone knocking on a door deep underground. I should mention that 8 years ago, I lost my research partner in these caves. Tom Harper. We were mapping a new system when the passage collapsed behind him. We searched for 3 weeks straight. State police, volunteer cavers, even brought in dogs. Never found his body. Never found any trace of him at all. Sometimes, late at night, I still wonder if we looked in the right places. The tapping stopped. I clicked on my headlamp and pulled out my notebook. My hands were shaking slightly as I sketched the entrance and took GPS coordinates. I told myself it was just excitement. A new cave was always exciting. But something felt wrong. The air coming from that opening was too warm, too dry. Cave air is usually cool and damp, and there was a smell. Not unpleasant exactly, like minerals and something else. Something almost like bread baking. I radioed back to the station. Whitman here. Found a new cave entrance on Sky Bridge North Face. Going to do a preliminary survey. Static crackled. Then Jenny's voice, our dispatcher. Copy that, Caleb. When should we expect you back? 2 hours, maybe 3. Be careful down there. I almost laughed. I'd heard that 1,000 times. Always am. I checked my equipment one more time. Rope, spare batteries, first aid kit, water, emergency radio, everything in its place. Everything I'd need for a standard cave survey. I had no idea I was walking into something that would change everything I understood about what lived beneath Kentucky's mountains. The passage sloped downward gently at first. My headlamp beam showed smooth limestone walls, but as I went deeper, I noticed something odd. The walls had marks on them, not the random scratches left by water and time, but deliberate grooves, parallel lines, evenly spaced. Tool marks. Someone had carved this tunnel. I stopped and ran my fingers over the grooves. They were old, the limestone had softened their edges but unmistakable. I'd seen similar marks in archaeological sites, places where ancient peoples had worked stone with patience and skill. But those sites were near the surface. I was already 200 feet down. The The tunnel opened into a larger chamber. I swept my headlamp around, and my breath caught in my throat. The walls were covered in symbols, not random scratches or natural formations, actual symbols, carved in neat rows like text in a book. Spirals and circles and shapes that looked almost like letters but weren't any alphabet I recognized. They covered every surface, floor to ceiling, like someone had spent years documenting something vital. I took out my camera and started photographing everything. My academic training kicked in, automatically document first, theorize later. But my hands were trembling. In 20 years of cave exploration, I'd never seen anything like this. That's when I heard the voices. Faint, echoing from deeper in the cave system. Speaking words I couldn't quite make out, in a rhythm that sounded human but wrong somehow. Too quick, with clicks and whistles mixed in. "Hello?" I called out. My voice bounced off the walls, distorted. "Is someone down here?" The voices stopped immediately. Silence pressed in around me. The kind of absolute quiet you only get deep underground, where no wind reaches and no insects chirp. Just the sound of my own breathing and the blood pounding in my ears. Then, from the darkness ahead, Caleb Whitman. My name, spoken clearly in a voice I almost recognized. "Tom?" The word came out as a whisper. It couldn't be. Tom had been dead for 8 years. "Tom Harper, is that you?" Footsteps. Not boots on stone, but something softer. Padding feet. Multiple sets of them, moving closer. My headlamp beam shook as I pointed it toward the sound. 4 figures emerged from a side passage. They were small, maybe 4 feet tall, with skin so pale it almost glowed in my lamplight. Their eyes were huge, twice the size of human eyes, and completely black, no white showing at all. They wore clothes that looked like they were woven from some kind of fiber, dyed in earthy colors. Browns and grays, and the deep red of iron-rich clay. They weren't human, but they weren't animals either. They were something in between. The closest one raised its hand, long fingers, too many joints, and spoke again. "Caleb Whitman, surface ranger, geologist, searcher of caves." Its mouth moved wrong. The words came out clear, but the lips and tongue didn't match the sounds, like the voice was being projected from somewhere else. I backed up a step. My rational mind was screaming that this couldn't be real. Hallucination, gas leak, something in the air making me see things. But my equipment readings showed normal oxygen levels, no toxic gases. And these creatures, whatever they were, cast shadows. They disturbed the dust on the cave floor. They were solid and real. What are you?" I managed to ask. "Hollow folk," the creature said. "We who live beneath, we who came down when the world above became poison." Another stepped forward. This one was slightly taller, with markings on its clothing that might have been decorative or might have meant something important. When it spoke, the voice was different, higher pitched. "You knew Tom Harper. Partner, friend, the one who fell into our territory." My heart hammered. Where is he? Is he alive? Alive, changed. He chose to stay with us, to become one of the below. This couldn't be happening. I wanted to run, but my legs felt like they'd turned to stone. Part of me, the scientist part, was already cataloging details. Their skin wasn't just pale, it was almost translucent in places. I could see dark shapes beneath, organs or bones arranged slightly differently than human anatomy. Their breathing was shallow and quick, like small animals. They'd evolved down here, adapted to life without sunlight. "I want to see him," I said, surprised by how steady my voice sounded. "I want to see Tom." The creatures looked at each other. Something passed. Between them, communication I couldn't hear or see. Then the first one nodded. "Follow. But know this, Caleb Whitman surface dwellers who enter our world deep do not always wish to return." They turned and walked back into the darkness. After a moment's hesitation, I followed. The passage led down, always down. We descended through chambers that had clearly been shaped by intelligent hands, past underground springs that flowed in directions that violated everything I knew about groundwater. The hollow folk moved with absolute confidence in the dark, only my headlamp providing any light. They didn't need it. Their huge eyes gathered every photon, saw in spectrums I couldn't imagine. We passed other hollow folk in the tunnels. They stopped and stared at me with those enormous black eyes. Children, or what I assumed were children, Smaller versions with the same pale skin and enormous eyes peered from side passages. I saw dwellings carved into the walls, doorways covered with woven curtains, heard the sounds of daily life, conversation, laughter that sounded almost normal, the clatter of tools or dishes. There was a whole civilization down here. How had we never known? The passage opened into a vast chamber, and I stopped dead in my tracks. It was a city. Not a crude settlement, but an actual city, with buildings carved from flowstone and chambers that glowed with phosphorescent plants. Terraced gardens grew strange, crops mushrooms the size of dinner plates, root vegetables I didn't recognize, even something that looked like fruit hanging from vines that climbed the walls. Water flowed through carved channels, powering simple machines. The ceiling disappeared into darkness overhead, but I could hear movement up there, sense the vast space. Hundreds of them lived here, maybe thousands. And in the center of the city, sitting at a table in what looked like a public square, was Tom Harper. He looked up when we entered, and I saw recognition flash in his eyes. But they weren't quite his eyes anymore. They were larger, the pupils dilated wide, the whites tinged with gray. His skin had paled, taking on that same translucent quality. He stood slowly, and I noticed he moved differently. Fluid, graceful, like he'd forgotten what it was like to walk in sunlight and had learned a new way to navigate darkness. "Caleb," he said, and his voice was the same. That at least hadn't changed. "I knew you'd find this place eventually. You never could resist a new cave system." "Tom." I couldn't move, couldn't process what I was seeing. "We searched for you, for weeks. We thought you were dead." I almost was. He walked closer, into the light of my headlamp, and I saw the scars on his arms. Old injuries, healed wrong. The collapse trapped me in a pocket with no air. I was dying, but they found me, the hollow folk. They brought me here, to their city. Saved my life with their medicine. "Then why didn't you come back?" The words came out harsher than I meant them. "We had a funeral for you. Your wife moved away. Everyone thought I couldn't come back." He gestured around at the underground city. Not once I understood what this place was, what they are. "Caleb, these people, they're not some isolated tribe. They're refugees. Descendants of Cherokee families and pioneers who fled underground during the Trail of Tears. They've been down here for over 140 years, building this civilization, surviving, adapting." One of my hollow folk guides spoke up. "We did not choose the below. We were driven here by violence and broken promises. Your world killed us, so we made a new world beneath it." I looked at Tom, really looked at him. "You've become one of them." "Yes." No hesitation, no shame. "I have a wife here, children, a life. I'm more at home in the darkness now than I ever was in the light." Before I could respond, a commotion erupted from one of the larger tunnels. Hollow folk came running, their voices raised in alarm. The one who seemed to be a leader, the taller one with the decorated clothing, barked orders in their language. Tom's expression darkened. "You need to leave. Now." "What's happening?" "There's a faction among my people who don't trust the surface world, who want to reclaim the mountains as our ancestral territory. They've been waiting for an excuse to act, and you just walked right into their hands." More hollow folk poured into the chamber. Some carried weapons, stone-tipped spears, clubs carved from ancient wood, but others held strange objects that pulsed with a faint green light. I recognized the glow bioluminescent fungi, but concentrated somehow, shaped into tools or weapons. The leader spoke rapidly to Tom, gesturing at me. Tom argued back, his voice rising. I caught a few words in their language, or at least I thought I did. "Surface Ranger, investigation, treaty." Then the leader turned to me and spoke in English. "3 surface dwellers entered our territory this morning. Hikers, following the new entrance you discovered. We captured them. They are being held until we decide what to do." My blood ran cold. "You can't kidnap people. Let them go." "Cannot." The leader's black eyes fixed on me. "They have seen our city. They know we exist. If we release them, your government will come. Your scientists, your military. They will destroy everything we have built. I can help you," I said desperately. "I can negotiate. There has to be a way." An explosion rocked the chamber. No, not an explosion. A collapse. One of the tunnels on the far side of the city crumbled inward, sending up a cloud of dust and debris. Screams echoed through the cavern. Hollow folk scattered, running toward the collapse or away from it. Chaos spreading like ripples in water. Tom grabbed my arm. They've done it. The war faction. They've started collapsing surface structures to drive your people away from our territory. People could die. People are already dying. He pulled me toward a side passage. The hollow folk released fungal spores into your ventilation systems last week. 3 hikers are dead at your ranger station right now. You just don't know it yet. The symptoms look like pneumonia. By the time anyone realizes what's happening, dozens more will be infected. I yanked my arm free. You knew about this and didn't warn me? I tried. His face twisted with anguish. I sent you signs. The equipment moving between caves, that was me, trying to leave you a trail. The voices you heard, I was calling your name, hoping you'd investigate before the war faction made their move. But they moved faster than I expected. Another collapse, closer this time. Dust rained from the ceiling. Somewhere above us, I heard a rumble that sounded like thunder but wasn't. They were bringing down sections of the trail system, the bridges and overlooks that thousands of tourists visited every year. I have to get to the surface, I said. I have to warn people. They won't let you leave. Tom looked over his shoulder at the chaos spreading through the city. The war faction will kill you rather than risk you reporting what you've seen. Then help me. He stared at me for a long moment. Then he nodded. This way. There's a passage that leads up to the old mining road exit. It's 3 miles of crawling through spaces barely wide enough for a human, but if we move fast, a spear thudded into the wall between us. We ran. Tom led me through passages I'd never seen on any map, tunnels so narrow I had to turn sideways to squeeze through. Behind us, I heard pursuit, the padding of feet, the clicking language of the hollow folk growing louder. They can move through stone, Tom gasped as we scrambled up a steep incline. Not really, but they know every crack and fissure. They can appear anywhere in this mountain. We have to. A hollow folk dropped from a ceiling crevice I hadn't even noticed, landing in front of us with a knife made from sharpened crystal. Tom didn't hesitate. He grabbed a rock and swung hard, catching the creature in the side. It went down with a cry that sounded too human. Keep moving! Tom pushed me forward. We climbed. My lungs burned and my hands were bleeding from grabbing sharp rock. The headlamp flickered, battery dying after hours underground. But ahead, I saw something that made hope surge through my chest. Daylight. Just a crack at first. A thin line of gray light that widened as we climbed. The passage was vertical here. A natural chimney that led up toward the surface. I could smell fresh air, pine trees, the promise of open sky. Tom stopped at the base of the climb. I can't go with you. What? Tom, you have to come back. You can't stay down there with my family? He smiled sadly. Caleb, I have 2 children, both healthy, both beautiful. Half human, half hollow folk. They can survive in both worlds, adapt to light or dark. They're the future proof that our people don't have to be enemies. The war faction won't stop. You said it yourself. They're killing people. I know. He pressed something into my hand. A stone carved with symbols, still warm from being held. This is a treaty stone. Show it to the peaceful faction leaders. Tell them Caleb Whitman speaks for the surface government. Tell them you offer recognition of their territory in exchange for ending the attacks. I don't speak for the government. I'm just a ranger. You're more than that. You're a scientist who understands what they've built here. You're the man who searched for 3 weeks when I disappeared. You're someone both worlds can trust. He looked up at the crack of daylight. Go. Stop the war before more people die. I'll do what I can from below. I wanted to argue, wanted to drag him back to the Duda, surface by force if necessary. But I saw the determination in his changed eyes and knew it would be pointless. Tom, your wife, she never remarried. She still wears her wedding ring. His face crumpled. Tell her I'm sorry. Tell her I found peace. I started climbing. The chimney was barely wide enough for my shoulders. I wedged myself between the walls and inchwormed upward, hands and feet finding the smallest holds. Behind me, Tom's voice called up, "The treaty stone, show them you come in peace." Then I heard other voices. The hollow folk, reaching the chimney base. Tom shouted at them in their language, arguing, bargaining, buying me time. I climbed faster. The crack of daylight grew. I could see individual leaves on trees now, see clouds moving across the sky. 20 feet, 15, 10. A hand grabbed my ankle. I looked down. A hollow folk warrior had followed me up, those huge black eyes fixed on me with murderous intent. Its fingers were impossibly strong, pulling me back down toward the darkness. I kicked hard, caught it in the face. It fell, taking 2 others with it in a tangle of pale limbs and angry voices. 5 feet from the surface. I pulled myself up and out, rolling onto blessed solid ground. The sun was setting, painting the sky orange and purple. I'd been underground for nearly 12 hours. My radio was smashed, my phone dead, but I was alive. I ran. The ranger station was 3 miles away through forest I knew like my own backyard. I ran until my legs gave out, then walked, then ran again. The treaty stone Tom had given me bounced against my chest, hung on a cord around my neck. The station was dark when I arrived. Too dark. Even after hours, someone should have been there. I found Jenny at her desk, slumped over like she'd fallen asleep. But she was too still, and her lips had a blue tinge I recognized from dozens of accident scenes. Not breathing. I checked for a pulse. Nothing. Her skin was cold. The fungal spores. Tom had been telling the truth. I found Mike, our other night ranger, in the equipment shed. Same story. Same blue lips, same stillness. I checked the logbook with shaking hands. 3 hikers had come in that morning complaining of respiratory trouble. Jenny had called for an ambulance. It never arrived. The phone lines had been cut. The hollow folk had been thorough. I grabbed the emergency radio, the one with its own power source, and started sending out alerts. Called the state police, the National Guard, the CDC, told them we had a biological attack in progress. Gave them coordinates of every cave entrance I knew about, warned them that people were dying. Then I sat in the dark station and waited, the treaty stone heavy around my neck. The government response was massive and mostly ineffective. They sealed cave entrances, flooded tunnels, tried to map the entire underground system. But the hollow folk knew passages that had been carved 100 years before modern equipment existed. For every entrance the authorities blocked, 2 more appeared overnight. The deaths stopped, though. That was the important thing. 3 days after I emerged, I returned to the cave on Skybridge Ridge, alone, against direct orders from my superiors. I carried the treaty stone and a white flag made from a torn bedsheet. They were waiting for me. Not the war faction, but the peaceful leaders Tom had mentioned. Older hollow folk with gray skin and eyes that had seen more than any human should. We talked for hours in that first chamber, the one with symbols carved on every surface. I learned their history, the real history, not the sanitized version in textbooks. I heard about families torn apart, children who died in the cold, the desperate decision to go underground and never return. And I made them an offer, 3,000 acres of Red River Gorge, designated as protected wilderness, no development, no tourism, no scientific surveys. In exchange, they would end all attacks on the surface and work with us to prevent accidental contact. They agreed. It took 6 months to make it official. The government classified the whole thing, of course, called it an environmental protection initiative, bought out the few private landholdings in the area. No one except a handful of people with the highest clearances knows the real reason those caves are off limits. I see Tom sometimes. He comes up during new moons when the darkness above ground is closest to the darkness below. We meet in the sealed section of forest, and he tells me about his life beneath the mountains. His children are growing, they can spend hours in sunlight now without discomfort, and the hollow folk youngsters are learning to trust the surface world. It's a fragile peace. The war faction still exists, still argues for reclaiming the mountains by force, but the treaty holds, barely. I kept my job as a ranger, though I answer to different supervisors now. Ones who know what I really do, maintain the relationship between 2 worlds, prevent conflicts before they start, protect a secret that could change everything we think we know about human history. Sometimes, late at night, I stand at the sealed cave entrance and listen to the sounds echoing from below. Music. Laughter. The everyday noise of a civilization that chose survival over surrender. And I wonder how many other places like this exist. How many other groups fled underground, adapted, survived in the darkness while the world above forgot they ever existed. The mountains are full of secrets. I've spent 28 years exploring them now, 8 years since that first contact, and I've barely scratched the surface. Or maybe I should say, I've barely scratched beneath it. Last week, I found another new cave entrance. This one in the Smoky Mountains, 200 miles south. Same smooth edges, same warm air, same, the smell of baking bread. I haven't gone inside yet, but I will, because that's what I do. I maintain the bridge between the world of light and the world of darkness. I keep the peace between those who live above and those who chose to live below. My name is Caleb Whitman. I'm a park ranger and a keeper of secrets. And every time I go underground, I carry Tom's treaty stone around my neck, a reminder that some walls are meant to be broken down, some bridges are meant to be built, and some truths are too important to stay buried forever, even if they live in the hollow places beneath our feet. My name is Marcus Stormwind, and I'm a park ranger in the George Washington National Forest. I've worked here for 22 years, mostly night shifts. People think that's strange, but after what I saw in Vietnam, I prefer the darkness. At least out here, I know what's hunting me. I'm 48 now, too old for this job according to some folks. But I can still track a deer through 3 miles of hardwood forest in pitch darkness. My hands don't shake when I aim my rifle. Not anymore. Not unless I think too hard about the war. I live alone in a ranger station deep in the Shenandoah Valley. It's just me, my radio, and enough military gear to outfit a small unit. Old habits die hard. I keep everything clean, organized, and ready to go. My rifle, 308 I carried since my Marine days, sits by the door, always loaded. I tell myself it's for bears and mountain lions. The station sits near a Civil War battlefield. You can still find spent bullets in the dirt if you look hard enough. Sometimes at night, when the wind blows right, you can almost hear the cannons. Local people say the place is cursed. They say soldiers who died here never really left. I never believed in ghosts. I'd seen enough real death in Vietnam to know that once someone's gone, they're gone. Dead is dead. But I'm getting ahead of myself. It started in April of 1987. A farmer named Henderson called about his cattle, 3 of them torn apart during the night. When I got there, the sun was just coming up, painting everything orange and red like a battlefield. "Look at this, Marcus," Henderson said, pointing at the barn door. It was open. The lock hadn't been broken, it had been unlocked from the outside. What kind of animal opens a gate? I knelt by the first cow. The killing was brutal but smart. The throat had been torn out first, quick, efficient, like someone who knew what they were doing. But the claw marks were wrong. Too big, too deep. "Could be a bear," I said, but I didn't believe it. "Bears don't stack things," Henderson said. He was right. Near the fence, someone had arranged 3 stones in a triangle. Military grave markers, the kind we used in the field when we couldn't bring bodies home. My hands started shaking then, just a little. Over the next 3 months, the attacks continued, always during the full moon, always near Civil War sites. A campground, another farm, a hiking trail. Each time, the same pattern: gates opened, victims killed with military precision, and those damn stone markers left behind. I started mapping the attacks. They formed a perfect circle around the old Confederate field hospital, 5 miles in every direction, 28 days between each incident. The moon cycle. My boss wanted to call in animal control, maybe some hunters. But I told him I'd handle it. This was my territory. My responsibility. By October, I'd spent 6 months tracking whatever was doing this. I had plaster casts of footprints that showed something walking on 2 legs, 7 feet tall, with claws. I had photos from my trail cameras that showed a massive shape moving through the trees, upright, fast, and carrying something that looked like a rifle. The night of October 12th, I was checking my cameras near the old battlefield when my radio crackled to life. "Unit 7, this is base. We've got campers reporting screams near Devil's Creek. You're closest." Devil's Creek ran right through the Civil War hospital site. "Copy that. I'm 10 minutes out." I grabbed my rifle and ran. The moon was full that night, so bright I barely needed my flashlight. As I got closer to the creek, I heard it a sound like nothing I'd ever heard before. Part human scream, part wolf howl, part something else entirely. Then I smelled it. Blood. Fresh and thick in the air. I found the campsite torn apart, 2 tents shredded, a cooler smashed open, and sitting by the fire, shaking so hard his teeth were chattering, was a young man covered in blood. "Sir," I said quietly, keeping my rifle ready, "are you hurt?" He looked up at me with eyes that had seen something they couldn't understand. "It was a soldier," he whispered. "A soldier covered in fur. The kid's name was Danny. He was 19, camping with his girlfriend, Sarah. Was camping with her, I should say. I wrapped him in a blanket and called for backup, but I already knew what the other rangers would find. The same thing I'd found at every other attack, a body torn apart with surgical precision, and those 3 stones arranged in a triangle. "Tell me exactly what you saw," I said, keeping my voice calm and steady like I used to do with young Marines before their first patrol. Danny's hands wouldn't stop shaking. "We were roasting marshmallows. Sarah was laughing about something, I can't remember what. Then the fire went out. Just went out. Like something sucked all the air away. Go on." We heard footsteps, heavy, coming from the trees. I turned on my flashlight and saw. He stopped, swallowing hard. It was wearing an old uniform. Gray, torn up, and dog tags. I saw dog tags around its neck. But its face was wrong. Too long. Too many teeth. How tall? 7 feet, maybe taller. It walked on 2 legs, but wrong, like it was learning how. And it had a rifle, an old one, like from a museum. "What happened to Sarah?" Danny started crying then. "It looked right at her. And then it smiled. It smiled at me with all those teeth, and then..." He couldn't finish. I squeezed his shoulder. I knew what came next. I'd seen the photos. When backup arrived, 2 rangers named Tom and Jennifer, I left Danny with them and started tracking. The thing's footprints were easy to follow in the soft mud by the creek. They led deeper into the forest, toward the old battlefield. I'd been tracking for about an hour when I found the first piece of evidence that made my blood run cold. Shell casings, 30-06 rifle rounds, military issue. But the casings had teeth marks on them, like something had caught the bullets in its mouth and chewed them. "What the hell?" I whispered. That's when I heard it. A low growl, coming from everywhere and nowhere at once. I raised my rifle and flipped on my night vision scope, another piece of gear from my military days that the Park Service didn't know I had. Through the green glow of the scope, I saw it. It was standing about 50 yards away, partially hidden behind an old oak tree. 7 feet tall, just like Danny said. But what he hadn't mentioned, couldn't have mentioned because it was too dark, was the uniform. It wasn't just any Confederate uniform. It had modern military patches sewn onto it, ranger tabs, infantry insignia, a name tag that I couldn't quite read from this distance. The creature's head turned toward me. Even through the scope, I could see its eyes. They glowed yellow, but there was something behind them, something human, something aware. It raised one massive clawed hand and tapped its head twice. A military hand signal. Message received. Then it was gone, moving through the forest faster than anything that size should be able to move. I stood there for a long moment, my heart hammering in my chest. Whatever this thing was, it had military training. It understood tactics. And it had just acknowledged me. I was being hunted by something that thought like a soldier. Over the next 2 weeks, I became obsessed. I stopped going home. I set up a cot in my ranger station and covered every wall with maps, photos, and notes. I read every book about local legends I could find. I drove to the library in town and searched through old Civil War records. And I found him. Private Jeremiah Blackwood, Confederate Army, 33rd Virginia Infantry. Reported missing in October 1865, 2 years after the battle that destroyed the field. Hospital. His commander noted that Blackwood had gone into the caves near the battlefield to hide from Union patrols and never came back. His body was never recovered. The report listed him as a deserter. The photograph in the military record was small and faded, but I could see his face clearly enough. Thin, hard, with eyes that had seen too much death. Like looking in a mirror. I was so focused on the photograph that I almost didn't notice the sound outside my station. Footsteps. Heavy ones. I grabbed my rifle and moved to the window. It was standing in the clearing in front of my station, fully visible in the moonlight. The creature Blackwood, I now knew, was even more terrifying up close. Its body was massive, covered in dark fur, but it wore that strange combination of Civil War and modern military gear. The old gray uniform hung in tatters over a bulletproof vest that looked like it had been stolen from a police car. On its belt hung both a Civil War cavalry sword and modern combat knife. But the worst part was its face. It was stretched and distorted, caught somewhere between human and wolf. The snout was long and filled with teeth, but the eyes were human. Intelligent, sad. It tilted its head and raised its hand again. This time, it made a different signal. Friendly. Don't shoot. My finger was on the trigger. One shot, center mass, and I could end this. But something stopped me. Maybe it was those human eyes. Maybe it was the way it stood at attention, like a soldier awaiting orders. Can you understand me? I called through the closed window. The creature nodded slowly. What do you want? It reached into a pouch on its belt, moving deliberately, showing me it wasn't going for a weapon, and pulled something out. With surprising gentleness, it placed the object on the ground, then stepped back. I waited 5 full minutes after it disappeared into the trees before I opened the door. On the ground was a military challenge coin. Not a Civil War artifact, a Vietnam War coin, from my unit, the same one I carried in my pocket every day. I checked my pocket, my coin was still there, which meant this thing had somehow gotten an identical one. But there were only 50 of these coins ever made, given to members of my recon unit. I knew where all of them were. I'd gone to enough funerals, unless it had taken one from a grave. I picked up the coin with shaking hands and saw something scratched into the back. Brother. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in my station with every light on, my rifle across my lap, trying to understand what was happening. A Confederate soldier, bitten by something, transformed. But why was it targeting my unit? Why did it have a Vietnam War coin? The answer came from an unexpected source. The next morning, a woman showed up at my station. She was old, maybe 70, with gray hair and sharp eyes that reminded me of my grandmother. "You're the ranger tracking the beast," she said. It wasn't a question. "Who are you?" "Name's Margaret Blackwood. That creature you're hunting is my great-great-grandfather." I let her in and made coffee. She told me a story that sounded impossible but explained everything. "Jeremiah didn't desert," she said. "He was wounded in the battle and hid in the caves, while Union soldiers searched for survivors. But there was something else in those caves, something old. The Cherokee people who lived here before the settlers knew about it. They had rules: never go near the caves during the full moon. Never spill blood on the battlefield." What was in the caves? Something that fed on death. On violence. The battlefield had soaked the ground with blood from thousands of men. Whatever was in that cave, it was drawn to all that suffering. And it bit your grandfather. She nodded. Changed him. Made him something else. He tried to kill himself, tried to end it, but I couldn't die. And every full moon he transforms. Every full moon for 122 years, he's been hunting, killing, trying to protect what he thinks is still his territory. "Why the Vietnam coin?" I asked. Her expression darkened. "He doesn't just hunt randomly anymore. He's been collecting other soldiers, veterans who die near the battlefield. He takes something from them. A token, a memory. He's trying to build an army, a supernatural military unit. That's insane." "Is it? You've seen him. You know what he is, and you know he recognized you. He knew you were military. He sees you as a potential." The word hung in the air between us like a threat. "He wants to bite me. Not just you. Any veteran who comes near his territory. He's been doing it slowly, carefully, building his pack. Most people who get attacked don't survive the transformation, but every few years, someone does. And they join him. How many are there? We don't know. Maybe 3, maybe 10. They only come out during the blood moon, the lunar eclipse. That's when they're strongest." I looked at my calendar. The lunar eclipse was in 3 days. How do I stop him? Margaret reached into her purse and pulled out an old leather pouch. Inside were 3 bullets, dull gray metal that looked handmade. "Silver," she said, "melted down from Confederate officers' spurs we found on the battlefield. It's the only thing that can kill him." "But Marcus." She grabbed my hand, her grip surprisingly strong. He's still my grandfather. Somewhere in that monster is a man who's been suffering for over a century. If you kill him, you're setting him free. After she left, I did something I hadn't done in 20 years. I went to see the other rangers, Tom and Jennifer, and told them everything. They thought I was crazy at first, but I showed them the evidence, the photos, the footprints, the challenge coin. And I told them about Margaret's warning. So what do? Tom asked. We evacuate the area, close all the trails within 10 miles of the battlefield, and we prepare. Prepare for what? War. The next 2 days were a blur. We moved everyone out of the danger zone. We set up defensive positions around my station, the only building close enough to the battlefield that we could use as a base. We stockpiled ammunition, food, and medical supplies. Jennifer found more silver. She melted down Civil War artifacts from the battlefield museum: buttons, belt buckles, coins. We cast 6 more bullets. 9 total. Not much, but maybe enough. On the night of October 14th, we were as ready as we could be. The lunar eclipse was supposed to start at 9:47 p.m. At 9:30, the forest went silent. No birds, no insects, nothing. Just dead, heavy silence that made my ears ring. They're coming, I said. Tom checked his rifle. How many do you think? I thought about Margaret's words. Maybe 3. Maybe 10. Enough, I said. At exactly 9:47, the moon began to darken. And the howling started. It came from everywhere. North, south, east, west. Multiple voices, all howling at once. A chorus of rage and hunger that made my bones vibrate. Through my night vision scope, I saw them emerging from the trees. Not one creature. Not 3. 7. 7 massive wolfmen, all wearing combinations of military uniforms from different eras. Confederate gray, World War I drab, Vietnam jungle camo, desert storm tan. Each one carrying weapons, moving with tactical precision, spreading out to surround my station. And in the center, bigger than the rest, was Jeremiah Blackwood. He raised one clawed hand, and they all stopped, waiting for his command. Then he looked directly at me, even though I was hidden inside the dark station. Those yellow eyes found mine through the walls in the darkness. He tapped his chest twice. Come out. This is it, I said to Tom and Jennifer. Stay inside, cover the windows, don't waste the silver bullets unless you're sure of the shot. Marcus, you can't go out there. But I was already moving. I loaded 1 silver bullet into my rifle, just 1, keeping the others in reserve, and opened the door. Blackwood stood 20 feet away. Up close, he was even more massive than I remembered. 8 feet tall now, swollen with the blood moon's power. But he wasn't attacking. He was waiting. I know what you want, I called out. You want soldiers. You want to build an army. But it stops tonight. He tilted his head, and when he spoke, his voice was like gravel scraping over metal. Brother, join us. End the pain. Become what you were meant to be. I'm not your brother. Yes, you are. He took a step forward. I smell the death on you. The killing. You miss the war. You miss having a purpose. Join us and fight forever. For just a moment, one terrible, tempting moment, I understood. I did miss it. The clarity, the brotherhood, the purpose. Then I thought about Sarah, torn apart at her campsite. About all the innocent people this monster had killed over a century of madness. No, I said, and raised my rifle. That's when they attacked. The other 6 werewolves charged from all directions at once, moving faster than anything I'd ever seen. Tom and Jennifer opened fire from the windows. Regular bullets that did nothing but make the creatures angry. I aimed at the closest one, a thing wearing a World War I uniform, and fired. The silver bullet hit it in the chest. The creature's howl turned into a scream, and it collapsed, fur smoking, body shrinking back into human form as it died. But I'd already lost track of the others. They were too fast, and there were too many. One smashed through the east window. I heard Jennifer scream, then the sharp crack of her rifle. Another one was tearing at the door, its claws ripping through wood like paper. Blackwood watched it all from the center of the clearing, waiting. He wanted me to use up my ammunition. He wanted me exhausted and desperate. I reloaded another silver bullet and shot the creature at the door. It fell, and for just a moment, I saw its human face, a young man, maybe 30, with a Gulf War patch on his torn uniform. Someone's son, someone's husband, someone Blackwood had turned into a monster. "Tom," I shouted, "the coins, use them." I'd melted down silver coins earlier and given them to Tom and Jennifer. Not bullets, just chunks of silver. They could load them into their shotguns. Tom understood. I heard the boom of his shotgun, closer and more devastating than a rifle. One of the creatures yelped and fell back, silver fragments buried in its shoulder. But there were still 4 left, plus Blackwood. That's when I realized my mistake. While I'd been focused on the werewolves I could see, I'd forgotten about the battlefield. The air around us started to shimmer. At first, I thought it was the moonlight playing tricks. Then I saw them. Ghosts, Confederate soldiers, dozens of them, rising from the ground where they died over a century ago. They weren't fully solid, but they were real enough. They carried spectral rifles and swords, and their eyes were empty holes in their transparent faces. "Jesus Christ," Tom whispered. The ghost soldiers formed ranks behind Blackwood, standing at attention. An army of the dead, answering to their supernatural commander. Blackwood smiled, showing all his teeth. "You cannot win, brother. This is my territory. These are my men. Join us, or die." I only had 4 silver bullets left. 4 bullets against 4 werewolves, 1 alpha, and an army of ghosts. The math wasn't good. But I'd fought in Vietnam. I'd survived situations where the math wasn't good. And I'd learned something important during those 2 tours. When you can't win by fighting, you change the battlefield. "Jennifer," I shouted, "the propane tanks." We kept 3 large propane tanks behind the station for heat and cooking. Jennifer understood immediately. She grabbed one and started dragging it toward the front door. "Tom, give me covering fire. Use all the silver shot you have." Tom leaned out the window and started firing methodically, keeping the werewolves at bay. Each shot made them hesitate, the silver burning even when it didn't kill. I grabbed the propane tank from Jennifer and ran outside. The ghost soldiers moved toward me, but their spectral weapons couldn't quite touch me. They weren't fully here, not yet. They needed Blackwood's power to manifest completely, which meant I needed to take Blackwood down first. I rolled the propane tank toward the alpha werewolf and shot it with a regular bullet. The explosion was massive. Flames erupted outward, catching 2 of the remaining werewolves and scattering the ghost army like smoke in a wind. The heat was incredible, driving me back toward the station. But Blackwood was still standing. His fur was singed, and he was limping, but he was alive, and he was angry. He charged at me, moving so fast I barely had time to raise my rifle. I fired my 3rd silver bullet at point-blank range. It hit him in the shoulder. He screamed and staggered, but he didn't go down. His clawed hand lashed out and sent my rifle flying. Then we were fighting hand to hand, him with supernatural strength and me with 48 years of rage and survivor's guilt. He was stronger, faster, but I'd been trained by the best, and I knew how to hurt someone bigger than me. I went for the eyes, the throat, the joints. I used my combat knife, not silver, but sharp enough to make him bleed. We crashed through the burning remains of the clearing, trading blows. His claws opened deep cuts in my arms and chest. My knife found gaps in his fur, striking muscle and bone. And all the while, the ghost soldiers watched, waiting to see who would win. Finally, I managed to get behind him. I wrapped my arm around his throat in a chokehold, a move I'd learned in Marine training, and held on. "Please," Blackwood gasped, his voice more human than I'd heard before. "Please, I'm so tired." For the first time, I really heard him. Not the monster. The man. "How long?" I asked, still holding the choke. 122 years, every full moon, every time I wake up and remember what I've done. The people I've killed, the soldiers I've cursed. I can't die, I can't stop, please. The ghost soldiers were fading now, sensing their commander's weakness. The remaining werewolves had fled or died. It was just me and him. I looked at his face, that terrible mixture of man and wolf, and saw tears in those yellow eyes. "Thank you," he whispered. I picked up my rifle with my free hand. 1 silver bullet left. "You served your country," I said. "You deserve to rest. Attention, Private Blackwood." He straightened, even with my arm around his throat. Old training, old instincts. I put the rifle against his temple. You are released from duty." I pulled the trigger. The werewolf collapsed, its body shrinking, the fur receding. Within seconds, all that remained was a thin, elderly man wearing the tattered remains of a Confederate uniform. His face was peaceful. Finally at rest, the ghost soldiers faded away completely. The moon emerged from the eclipse, bright and clean and normal. Tom and Jennifer came out of the station, their faces pale with shock. "Is it over?" Jennifer asked. I knelt beside Blackwood's body and closed his eyes. For him, yes. We found dog tags around his neck. Private Jeremiah Blackwood, 33rd Virginia Infantry. I took them carefully, respectfully. The other dead werewolves had also transformed back to human. Young men, old men, all veterans, all victims. We buried them properly. I used my connections from the military to arrange for full honors. No one asked too many questions. The official report listed them as casualties from a training accident. For Blackwood, I did more. I researched his service record and found evidence that he hadn't deserted, he'd been wounded and left behind. I contacted a military historian and got his record corrected. 122 years late, but better than never. Margaret Blackwood came to his funeral. Just the two of us, standing in the old battlefield cemetery. "Thank you," she said. "He can rest now. So can they all." But my work wasn't finished. 2 weeks after the blood moon, I got a call from a ranger in Gettysburg. Livestock attacks, full moon cycle, stone markers arranged in triangles. "I might know something about that," I told him. "I still work nights, I still live alone. But now I have a purpose beyond just patrolling the forest. There are other Civil War battlefields, other sites where men died in rage and pain and fear. And where there's enough death, sometimes things come back wrong. I've connected with other veteran rangers across the country. We share information quietly, carefully. We watch the battlefields. We're ready for the full moons. I keep Blackwood's dog tags in my pocket, next to my challenge coin. A reminder that soldiers deserve peace, even the ones who became monsters, maybe especially them. Last week, I got another call. Antietam, similar pattern. I'm packing my gear now. The silver bullets Margaret taught me to make. My rifle, my knowledge, the moon will be full again soon, and I'll be ready. Because this is my mission now. Not just protecting the living from the dead, but protecting the dead from what they've become. Giving peace to soldiers who've been fighting for too long. My name is Marcus Stormwind, and I'm a ranger in the George Washington National Forest. And I hunt monsters. But I never forget they used to be men. My name is Jeremiah Copperhead, and I need to tell you what happened in Linville Gorge before someone gets hurt again. I've been a park ranger for 17 years now. I'm 42, and most people think I'm crazy for choosing this job after getting a PhD in herpetology. But that's the thing, I didn't become a ranger despite my education. I became one because of it. There's no better place to study snakes than right here in their home, watching them hunt, mate, and survive in the wild places most people avoid. People hate snakes. I get it. They're different. They move weird. They hide in places that make us nervous. But I've spent my whole life trying to change that fear into respect. Snakes keep the rodent population down. They control disease. They're part of a balance that's been working for millions of years. My Cherokee great-grandmother used to tell me stories about the old medicine men who worked with snake venom to heal people. She said our family had a gift, a resistance to venom that came from centuries of working alongside serpents in sacred ceremonies. I never believed her until I got bit by a copperhead when I was 12. The doctor said I should have been in agony for days. I had a headache for about an hour. These days, I do educational programs for visitors. I show them how to identify venomous species. I teach them what to do if they encounter a snake on the trail. Most importantly, I try to help them see that snakes aren't evil, they're just different. But last month, something changed. It started with the drought. We hadn't seen rain in 6 weeks, and the temperature was hitting 95 degrees every day. The streams in Linville Gorge were running low, exposing rocks and caves that are usually underwater. I was doing my regular patrol on a Tuesday morning when I noticed something odd. There were snakes everywhere. Not just one or two, like you'd normally see. I'm talking dozens. Black rat snakes, copperheads, timber, rattlers all moving in the same direction, toward the gorge. In 17 years, I'd never seen anything like it. Snakes are solitary. They don't travel in groups. They don't coordinate. But these snakes were moving together, like they had someplace to be. I followed them. The trail down into the gorge is steep and rocky. The walls rise up on both sides, covered in moss and ferns. It's beautiful down there, one of the last truly wild places in North Carolina. The Cherokee used to consider it sacred. They held ceremonies here, my great-grandmother said. Important ones. The snakes led me to a section of the gorge I'd never paid much attention to before. The drought had lowered the water level enough to expose a cave entrance I'd never seen. The opening was about 6 feet tall, carved into the limestone like a mouth. And the snakes were going inside. I stood there for maybe 10 minutes, just watching. A timber rattler as thick as my arm slithered past my boot without even pausing. A black snake followed. Then another rattler. They weren't hunting. They weren't fleeing from anything. They were just going home. I should have radioed it in right then. Should have called the wildlife biologists at the university. Should have done anything except what I did next. I went inside. The cave was cool and dark. My flashlight beam caught the scales of at least 20 snakes moving deeper into the tunnel. The walls were smooth, not natural. Someone had carved them. I could see symbols, circular patterns, spirals, and shapes that looked like serpents coiled around something. This wasn't just a cave, it was a temple. My radio crackled. "Jeremiah, you there? Got a report of a snake bite near the north campground. Family with kids. You need to head up there." I looked deeper into the cave. The snakes had disappeared into the darkness, and I felt this weird pull, like something was calling me forward. My feet actually started moving before I made the conscious decision to turn around. "Copy that," I said into the radio, "on my way." But as I climbed back up the trail, I couldn't stop thinking about that cave, about the carvings, about the way every snake in the forest seemed to know exactly where it was going. Something was waking up down there, and I had a terrible feeling it had been asleep for a very, very long time. The snake bite at the campground was strange from the start. The victim was a man in his 30s named Derek Walsh. He'd been setting up his tent when he felt something strike his ankle. By the time I got there, his wife was crying, and their 2 kids were huddled by the car, watching their dad with wide, scared eyes. "What kind of snake was it?" I asked, kneeling beside him. "I don't know, man. It was huge, maybe 6 feet long, brown and black patterns." He was sweating, but he didn't look like most bite victims I'd seen. No swelling, no discoloration, just fear. I checked his ankle. 2 puncture marks, clean and deep. Definitely a venomous bite. But the tissue around the wound looked normal. No redness, no signs of necrosis starting. "How do you feel?" I asked. "Weird." He looked at his hands like he'd never seen them before. I can hear things. Like, really hear them. The trees are moving and I can hear every leaf. And I can smell everything. Your deodorant. The soap his wife used this morning. The rubber in the tent poles. His pupils were huge, taking up most of his eyes. "We need to get you to the hospital," I said, but when I tried to help him stand, he jerked away. No, I need to stay here. I need to." He looked toward the gorge. "Do you hear that?" "Hear what?" "The singing. Can't you hear it? It's coming from down there. It's so beautiful." There was no singing, just the normal sounds of the forest birds. Wind, the distant rush of water. The paramedics took him away, but his words stuck with me. That look in his eyes, the way he'd stared at the gorge like something down there was calling to him. I spent the rest of the day documenting snake sightings. By evening, I'd counted over 300 individual snakes, all moving toward that cave. The wildlife office was getting calls from hikers who'd never seen so many snakes in their lives. People were scared. They wanted answers. I didn't have any. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about the cave, about Derek Walsh hearing things that weren't there, about my great-grandmother's stories. She'd told me about Uktena, the horned serpent, a massive snake with a crystal on its forehead that could show you the future. She said it guarded sacred places and punished those who disrespected the earth. I'd always thought it was just a story. At 2 a.m, I gave up on sleep and drove back to the gorge. I told myself I was just doing my job, checking on things. But really, I needed to see that cave again. The forest was different at night, quiet in a way that felt wrong. No crickets, no owls, just silence, broken only by the sound of my boots on the trail. I reached the cave entrance and stopped. There were more carvings visible now. The moonlight caught them just right, showing detailed images of a serpent with something protruding from its head. A horn? A crystal? The carving showed people bowing before it, offering something. The details were worn away by time. I turned on my flashlight and pointed it into the cave. Two eyes reflected back at me. Yellow gold, like coins catching the light. Then the snake struck. It happened so fast I didn't have time to move. The fangs sank into my forearm, and I felt venom pump into my blood, but instead of pain, I felt warmth. A spreading heat that moved up my arm and into my chest. The snake let go and slithered away, but I couldn't move. My legs wouldn't work. I collapsed against the cave wall, my flashlight rolling away across the stone floor. And then I heard it. Asterisk. Welcome, grandson of the medicine people. Asterisk. The voice wasn't coming from outside. It was inside my head, deep and ancient, like rocks grinding together under the earth. Asterisk. You have been marked. You carry the blood of those who served us long ago. Asterisk. Who? My tongue felt thick. Who are you? Asterisk. I am Uktena, guardian of the sacred places, keeper of the balance. I have slept while your kind poisoned the waters and cut down the forests, but now I wake. Now I call my children home. Asterisk. The yellow eyes appeared again, but this time they were bigger. Much bigger. And they weren't at ground level, they were 10 feet up, looking down at me from the darkness. Asterisk. Your kind has forgotten respect. You take and never give back. The earth cries out, and I have heard. Asterisk. I'm not, I don't. I couldn't form complete thoughts. The venom was doing something to me, opening doors in my mind I didn't know existed. A shape moved in the darkness, something massive, sliding across stone with a sound like leather dragging over concrete. My flashlight beam caught scales, not the dull browns and blacks of normal snakes, but colors that shifted and changed. Rainbow patterns that shouldn't exist in nature. Asterisk. You love my children, I feel it. But you also serve the ones who destroy. You walk between worlds, grandson. Soon you must choose which one you belong to. Asterisk. Choose what? But the voice was fading. The eyes disappeared into the darkness. I could feel sensation returning to my legs, the paralysis lifting. I grabbed my flashlight and ran. I didn't stop until I reached my truck. My arm burned where the fangs had entered, but when I checked it under the dome light, there were no marks, no punctures, no signs I'd been bitten at all. But I could still hear that voice in my head, echoing like a memory that wouldn't fade. Asterisk. Soon you must choose. Asterisk. The next morning, I called my contact at the Cherokee tribal office. Her name was Sarah Blackfeather, and she was one of the few people who took the old stories seriously. I need to talk to you about Uktena, I said. There was a long silence on the phone. Where are you calling from? Linville Gorge. Get out of there, Jeremiah. Right now. Sarah. The old ones say when Uktena wakes, it means the balance has been broken. It means the earth is calling for justice. You don't want to be there when that happens. It already happened. I saw it. I heard it. Another silence. Longer this time. Then you're part of it now. And God help you. Because once Uktena marks you, there's no going back. The attack started 3 days later. A family of hikers found a woman on the Blue Ridge Trail, unconscious and covered in snake bites. By the time the helicopter got her to the hospital, she was in a coma. The doctors counted 37 separate bite marks from at least 5 different species. The next day, a fisherman at the gorge's edge reported that something pulled his friend into the water. They found the body downstream, drowned. But the weird thing? He had snake bites all over his body, like dozens of serpents had bitten him while he was in the water. Snakes don't hunt in packs. They don't drown people. But the evidence was right there. The Park Service wanted to close the gorge, but the county supervisor refused. Too much tourist money at stake. Instead, they sent me out with warning signs and told me to make sure people stayed away from the water. I was posting signs near the cave entrance when I found the first transformed victim. His name had been Marcus Chen. I'd met him 2 days before, a grad student studying forest ecology. Now he was sitting cross-legged in front of the cave, and when he turned to look at me, I saw that his eyes had changed. The pupils were vertical slits, like a snake's. His skin had a weird shine to it, like scales just under the surface. "Jeremiah," he said, and his voice had a hiss to it that definitely wasn't there before. "You can feel it too, can't you? The calling. Marcus, we need to get you to a hospital." He smiled, showing teeth that seemed slightly longer than they should be. "I don't need a hospital. I've never felt better. Stronger. Faster. I can sense things now. Vibrations in the ground. Heat signatures. I know there's a rabbit hiding under that bush 30 feet away. I know you haven't slept in 2 days. I know you've been marked, just like me. What did they do to you? They showed me the truth." He stood up, and his movements were too smooth, too fluid. "Humans are the disease, Jeremiah. We spread across the land, killing and taking, never giving back. Uktena is the cure, the great cleansing, and we get to be part of it." "We?" That's when I noticed the others. 3 more people emerging from the cave, all with that same strange shine to their skin, those same slit pupils. A woman I recognized as a park volunteer, a teenage boy who'd been camping with his family, a man in his 50s wearing a ranger uniform from a different district. "Join us," Marcus said. "You're already halfway there. I can smell the venom in your blood. You survived the bite, that means you're worthy." My hand went to my radio, but one of the others, the park volunteer, moved impossibly fast and knocked it away. She grabbed my wrist, and her grip was like iron. "Don't fight it," she whispered. "Let the transformation complete. It's beautiful on the other side." I yanked free and ran. Behind me, I heard them coming. Not running, they were too smart for that. They were herding me, using the same techniques predators use on prey. Cutting off exits, forcing me toward a specific destination. I realized too late where they were pushing me. Back toward the cave, back toward Uktena. The gorge was changing. Every day brought new reports of impossible snake behavior. A couple camping near the water woke up surrounded by a perfect circle of copperheads, all facing inward, watching them. A photographer got footage of dozens of snakes moving in synchronized patterns, like a school of fish. And the bites kept happening. Each victim showed the same symptoms: enhanced senses, personality changes, and that same compulsion to return to the gorge. The hospitals couldn't explain it. The venom should have killed most of them, but instead, it was changing them into something else. I started keeping a journal, documenting everything. The way the transformed victims could communicate with snakes, how they seemed to share information without speaking, the fact that they didn't need much food or sleep anymore. They were becoming more reptile than human. Sarah Blackfeather came to see me at my ranger station on the 5th day. She looked scared. "The elders have been talking," she said. "They say this happened before, a long time ago. When the settlers first came and started cutting down the sacred groves, Uktena woke then too. The Cherokee had to make a deal to put it back to sleep." "What kind of deal?" "They promised to protect the sacred sites, to maintain the ceremonies, to keep the balance." She looked at me with haunted eyes. "But we failed. The sites were forgotten, the ceremonies stopped, and now Uktena is awake, and it's angry. How do we stop it? I don't know if we can. The old stories say Uktena can't be killed. It's eternal, like the mountains themselves. The only way to stop it is to make it choose to sleep again." "How?" She pulled out a leather pouch from her bag. Inside were dried herbs, crystals, and what looked like ancient snake vertebrae. "The elders gave me this. It's for a ceremony, the old snake medicine ritual. But it requires someone with the right bloodline, someone Uktena has already marked." She looked at my arm, where the bite had been. "Someone like you." That night, I had a dream. I was standing in the cave, and Uktena was before me, a serpent as long as a train, with scales that showed every color I'd ever seen and some I hadn't. The crystal horn on its head glowed with an inner light. "Asterisk. Your people break the earth. Asterisk, it said. Asterisk, they poison the water. They drive my children from their homes. For 200 years, I slept. I trusted humans to learn, to change. But you have only gotten worse. Asterisk. Not all of us," I said. "Some of us are trying, asterisk, not enough. Not fast enough. I have seen the future, grandson. If humanity continues, nothing will remain. So I will remove humanity. My children will reclaim these mountains. The balance will be restored. Asterisk. By killing innocent people? Asterisk. Innocence is a human concept. The deer does not ask if the wolf is innocent. The mouse does not question the snake's right to hunt. I am nature, I am balance, and I will do what must be done. Asterisk. I woke up covered in sweat. But the dream felt real, more like a vision than a sleep fantasy. And when I looked at my arm in the bathroom mirror, I saw new marks. Patterns on my skin that looked like scales, faint but definitely there. The transformation had started. I had maybe 2 days before I became like Marcus and the others. 2 days to figure out how to stop this, or I'd lose myself forever. The question was, did I even want to stop it? Part of me, a part that was growing stronger every hour, thought maybe Uktena was right. Maybe humanity had failed. Maybe it was time for something new. That scared me more than anything. The breaking point came when they hit the elementary school field trip. 23 kids, ages 7 to 10, hiking the nature trail with 4 teachers. The transformed ones coordinated the attack perfectly. They herded the group toward the gorge, using snakes, hundreds of them, appearing from nowhere, forcing the terrified children and adults toward the cave entrance. I got there just as the first kid was bitten. A little girl, maybe 8 years old, screaming as a timber rattler sank its fangs into her leg. Then another snake bit a teacher. Then another child. The transformed humans watched from the tree line, their slit pupil eyes gleaming with satisfaction. I did the only thing I could think of. I ran into the middle of it, putting myself between the children and the snakes, and I screamed into my radio for evacuation helicopters. That's when Marcus stepped out of the trees. "You can't save them, Jeremiah. Look at your arms, look at your eyes, you're almost one of us now. Why fight it?" He was right. The scale patterns had spread up to my shoulders. When I checked my reflection in my truck's side mirror that morning, I'd seen my pupils starting to elongate. The transformation was accelerating. "These are children," I said. "They're future destroyers. Better to change them now, while they're young. They'll adapt faster. Understand better." He gestured to the cave. "Uktena is offering a gift: evolution, enhanced senses, longer life, connection to the natural world. We're not killing humanity. We're saving it by making it better. By turning them into something they didn't choose to be." Did they choose to inherit a dying planet? Marcus tilted his head, the movement too reptilian. "Come inside, talk to Uktena yourself. Let it show you what's really at stake." The helicopters were still 10 minutes out. The snakes had stopped attacking, but they surrounded us in a living wall, thousands of serpents waiting for the command to strike. The children were crying, frozen in terror. I had one choice. I walked into the cave. The tunnel opened into a massive chamber, easily 100 feet across. The walls were covered in Cherokee carvings, showing centuries of ceremonies and offerings, and in the center, coiled in layers upon itself, was Uktena. It was bigger than I'd imagined. Each coil was as thick as a car, covered in those impossible rainbow scales. The crystal horn jutted from its head like a sword made of light. When it moved, the entire chamber seemed to shift with it. "Asterisk, you came," asterisk, the voice said in my head. Asterisk, good, we have much to discuss. Asterisk, let those children go. Asterisk, why? So they can grow up to destroy more forests, dam more rivers? Their kind has proven they cannot change. Asterisk, then punish us, the adults. But leave the kids alone. Asterisk, there is no difference. All humans are the same parasites consuming their host. Asterisk, I thought about Sarah's ceremony. About the pouch of herbs and bones sitting in my truck. About my great-grandmother's stories. "You're wrong," I said. "My ancestors, our ancestors, lived here for thousands of years without destroying it. They took only what they needed. They honored the balance. Humans can change. We just need to remember how." Asterisk, your ancestors made me a promise. They swore to protect these sacred places. They failed. Why should I trust any human again? Asterisk, because I'm standing here. Because I've spent 17 years teaching people to respect snakes instead of fear them. Because I'm asking you to give us another chance. The great serpent moved closer, its head descending until it was level with mine. The crystal horn pulsed with light, and suddenly I could really see what it was showing me. I saw the forest as it had been 200 years ago, pristine and perfect. I saw the Cherokee ceremonies, the careful balance they maintained. Then I saw the settlers arriving, the trees falling, the streams damming, the slow death of the land. But I also saw possibilities. Humans learning, changing, making different choices. It wasn't guaranteed. It wasn't even likely. But it was possible. Asterisk. You would stand as guardian? Asterisk, Uktena asked. Asterisk. You would pledge your life to maintaining the balance, as your ancestors did? You would accept the burden of being neither fully human nor fully serpent, but something between? Asterisk. If it saves those kids, if it gives humanity another chance. Yes, asterisk. Then prove your worthiness. Accept my bite. Survive the full transformation. And if your spirit is strong enough to maintain your human heart while gaining serpent wisdom, I will accept your oath. Asterisk. The great serpent struck faster than thought. Its fangs each as long as my forearm sank into my chest. I felt venom pour into me, not drops like before, but gallons of it, flooding my system. The pain was unimaginable. Every cell in my body was changing, burning, dying, and being reborn as something new. I could feel my DNA rewriting itself, my bones reshaping, my senses expanding beyond anything human. I saw through the eyes of every snake in the forest. I felt the vibrations of every footstep on the mountain. I knew the location of every living thing within miles. The knowledge was overwhelming, infinite, too much for any human mind to contain. But I held on. I remembered who I was: Jeremiah Copperhead, ranger, scientist, teacher, son of Cherokee medicine people, protector of serpents, human. When I opened my eyes, I was still myself, but also more than myself. The scale patterns had spread across my entire body, but they were subtle, visible only in certain light. My eyes had changed permanently. The pupils slit but not entirely inhuman. And I could still feel Uktena's consciousness at the edge of my mind, connected but not controlling. Asterisk. You have passed. Asterisk, the ancient voice said. Asterisk. Rise, guardian. Accept your role as keeper of the balance. Asterisk, I stood, feeling strength I'd never had before. The children? Asterisk released, and I will return to my slumber. But hear me, grandson, if humanity fails again, if the sacred places are violated, I will wake once more, and next time, there will be no second chance. Asterisk, I understand. Asterisk, the others, those already transformed, they are yours to guide. They will help you protect these mountains. Use them wisely. Asterisk. The great serpent's horn pulsed one final time, and I saw a vision of the future, not fixed, but possible. The gorge protected, the forests healing, humans learning to live in balance with the land. It wasn't certain, nothing ever was, but it was a chance. I walked out of the cave into sunlight. The helicopters had arrived, evacuating the children. Marcus and the other transformed stood watching me, waiting. It's over, I told them. Uktena has returned to sleep. Marcus looked at me, seeing the changes in my eyes. What are we supposed to do now? We protect this place. We teach. We make sure this never has to happen again. That was 3 months ago. The official story says there was a mass snake migration caused by the drought, resulting in numerous bites and a temporary closure of the gorge. The Park Service implemented new safety protocols. Wildlife biologists wrote papers about the unprecedented behavioral patterns. Nobody talked about the transformations, about Uktena, about what really happened down there. The children who were bitten all recovered. The venom left their systems after a few days, and they went back to normal lives. Well, mostly normal. A few of them write to me sometimes, asking questions about snakes, wanting to learn more. Maybe that's enough. The adults who fully transformed there are 14 of us now. We've become a network of guardians. We monitor the sacred sites throughout the Appalachians, places where ancient things still sleep. We can sense when the balance tips too far, when nature is pushed past its breaking point. Marcus works at a wildlife rehabilitation center now. The woman who used to be a park volunteer runs environmental education programs. We've all found ways to use our gifts to protect instead of destroy. I'm still a ranger, still giving tours, still teaching people about snakes. But now I have a deeper connection to them. I can sense their needs, their fears, their purposes, and in return, they help me monitor the forest, keeping watch over the places that matter most. Sarah Blackfeather and the Cherokee elders have restarted some of the old ceremonies. Not all of them, some knowledge was lost forever, but enough to maintain a connection, to honor the promises made centuries ago. I participate when they'll have me. It feels right, like fulfilling a purpose I didn't know I had. The scale patterns on my skin are permanent. I wear long sleeves most of the time, but sometimes hikers notice. I tell them it's a skin condition. They believe me because people see what they expect to see. My eyes, though those are harder to hide. Behind sunglasses, I look normal enough. But in certain light, you can see the vertical pupils, the golden flecks that weren't there before. Kids notice more often than adults. They'll stare at me, curious but not afraid, like they recognize something ancient looking back at them. Sometimes, late at night, I stand at the edge of the gorge and listen. The cave is sealed now, officially due to structural instability. Unofficially because some doors should stay closed. But I can still feel Uktena down there, sleeping but aware, dreaming of a world in balance. It sends me visions occasionally, warnings about other sacred places under threat, ancient things stirring in their sleep. The Cherokee had it right. Uktena wasn't the only guardian. There are others, scattered across the continent, waiting and watching. Last week, I got a call from a ranger in Washington state. She'd found bear tracks bigger than any species should make, and the tribal elders there were whispering about the thunderbird waking. She'd heard about what happened here, about the ranger, who somehow stopped a supernatural crisis without bloodshed. I'm flying out next month to see what I can do. Because here's what I learned in that cave, what Uktena showed me in those visions. The world is older and stranger than most people know. The things in our legends aren't metaphors or fairy tales, they're real, and they're sleeping, and they'll only stay asleep as long as we keep our promises. We have to do better. We have to remember that we're part of nature, not separate from it. We have to protect the sacred places, honor the old agreements, maintain the balance. If we don't, things like Uktena will wake. And next time, we might not get another chance. I look at my reflection in the ranger station window. The golden flecks in my eyes catch the morning light. My skin has that slight shine that never quite goes away. I'm not fully human anymore, but I'm not a monster either. I'm a guardian, a bridge between two worlds, a reminder that some promises should never be broken. The serpent's hollow is quiet now, but I'll be watching. We all will, because the balance must be maintained, and we are its keepers.